There we are. We're recording and we are live. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Georgia. Bore da, aelodau, croeso I gyfarfod awdurdod Parc Cenedlaethol. Croeso hyfryd a unrhyw aelod o'i cyhoedd syth yn gwylio. Welcome all to this Wednesday, the 7th of May's National Park Authority meeting. My name's Di Clements and I am the chair, I think probably for the last time for this. So hopefully this will go nice and smoothly. We've got I just want to mention we've got a workshop after. We'll stop at around 11:30ish for a break and then we'll stop for lunch probably just before. Oh, Georgia, put your hand up.
Hi, Chair. Thank you. Linon has requested if we could just test the interpretation quickly before we begin, if that's all right.
Yes, of course. Somebody, Gwyn, do you want to say something, or Mike?
Can you hear me?
So we're just having a quick check of the interpretation. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to this morning's meeting.
That's working perfectly. Thank you, Lynwen. Good. Sorry. Yeah, welcome to you all. I'm not sure about you, but Pembrokeshire in spring is my favourite time of the year as everything explodes into life, and the weather has played ball this year. The woodland flowers are fantastic, so if you haven't already had the chance, do go out and see them soon. So I hope you make good use of the lovely area that we live in. Right, I'm going to go straight on to the agenda to receive apologies for absence, please.
Thank you, Chair. We've had an apology from Councillor Bethan Price.
Thank you. Do I have any disclosures of interest by members or officers in respect of any item of business? Dr. Plummer, please.
Thank you. Personal, not prejudicial, but for the record, I'm a Welsh Government Senior Independent Member for Public Appointments. We've got a number of forthcoming end of terms of office, and I think it'll be a topic on which there may be comment or discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vanessa Thomas, please.
Good morning. It's just a personal interest for item 1725, just being a member of the Caravan and Motorhome Club and also the Camping and Caravan Club, which appears in the article on 1725. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. Charles, please.
Yeah, unusually a potential conflict of interest from me in relation to the offshore wind farm matter that's happening. I have represented various players in the offshore wind farm industry, so I think it's probably sensible for me to sit out on that one. So I'll leave the meeting after we've dealt with the Article 4 direction, if that's okay.
Thank you. And just for members' advice, please, if you could keep your cameras on throughout the meeting and only vote if you are present for the whole of the discussion. I'd be very grateful, please. Thank you. I will introduce the officers as and when their reports and the agenda item relevant to them comes up, and all of our names I think are on the screen anyway, so but if not, you can look us up. Any member of the public who may be watching, you can look us up on the website. Good, thank you. We will go to confirm the minutes of the meetings held on the 26th of March, apologies, which is on page 5. Do I have a proposer for those minutes, please? I'm quite happy to move them. Do I have a seconder? Mike, James, is that you? You have to second, thank you. Do I have, or do I have, is it everybody in agreement, please? You could just raise your virtual hand, please. I'd be grateful. Ten, 12 I've got. Okay, thank you. Anybody against? No, not me. And where is your, oh, okay, is any abstentions, please? Julie and Rosie, I think. So that's 2. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. And on item 4, which is page 15, is the action log. Nice to see the majority of all of that grey now. So those are completed. There's obviously just the pay and grading review to take place, but the timescale for that isn't until September. So has anybody got any queries on that action log before we move on? No? Good. Thank you. Thank you. Right. My chair's announcements. I've got quite a lengthy announcements to make, so apologies in advance. There's always lots going on, but the highlight had to be attending the Visit Wales Awards at Llandudno last month, where Carew Castle was nominated for Best Attraction. We all had our fingers crossed and everything crossed for them, didn't we, from the last meeting? Unfortunately, we didn't win. We didn't have a train, so we didn't win, which was a shame. But the fact that we got there in the first place was testament to the hard work of Daisy, Mark, and the whole team. It's at times like this when you see firsthand the dedication and commitment our officers and staff have for the work that they do. And I'm sorry you didn't win, but you should be proud. Many congratulations from getting there in the first place, but there's always next year. So no, it was a lovely event. We've sadly to report we've lost to retirement Anthony Richards, our Access and Public Rights of Way officer. Manager, I think he was actually, sorry. He's been with the authority since the start, so many years service. We wish him well in retirement, but we will miss him, and especially his expertise and experience, and thank him greatly for all of his service. So thank you, Anthony. I also want to make reference to David Morgan. I never met Mr. Morgan, but he's recently passed away. David worked for the authority until 2012, but he left a lasting legacy for us that we probably don't appreciate. He made significant contributions to strategic planning and GIS, setting up databases and map layers, which we still use today. And he was instrumental in improving the accuracy of that map data. David's legacy extends beyond here as well. He worked closely with Welsh Government to develop the methodology for providing population and household protections for national parks, and work that we all continue to benefit from. Although David moved to PCC in 2012 as corporate GIS manager, he continued to work closely with us, sharing his extensive knowledge and expertise. I've been told by others that they found him easy to work with, friendly, helpful, and scarily intelligent, and had a wicked sense of humour. He will be greatly missed by all, and our thoughts are with his family at this time. Rachel attended the National Park UK Chairs and Chief Execs Forum at the Peak District last week. And is Rachel on the call? She is, isn't she?
I am.
Yes, I'm sorry, I sent you a very late text to ask you perhaps if you wouldn't mind saying a few words, because it looked like a packed few days, and I noted that Julian Glover was the after dinner speaker one night there, and there was a visit to Chatsworth House. So I'm just wondering if you might like to just give us a very brief overview of your few days up there, if you wouldn't mind, Rachel, please.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, Di. So myself and Tegrin went. Tegrin was in the second half because he was double booked. He was in Ffermio Bro as well, which will come up on the agenda later. So yeah, I was covering us for the majority of it. It was a packed agenda and a very interesting one. It's always good to meet with everybody from across the UK. And whilst there are differences now across England, Wales, Scotland, etc., actually we have more in common than anything else. That sort of the common problems that come out all of the time are climate change, the traffic and popularity of some key spots and trying to manage those hot spots. You know, we climbed Mam Tor, which is really showing erosion, and a really important hill fort, which we'll understand in Wales, the importance of hill forts. So they also had a wildfire which hit the news. You could see as far as Sheffield while we were there. And of course, it was roasting weather last week, wasn't it? So it really caught. And they think that they've probably lost about a third of the peat recovery work they'd been doing over 10 years in that park, just that wildfire while we were there. So, you know, say common problems, really good to get together and talk about those challenges. So we did talk about nature recovery, really interesting topics, and also land management. Of course, they got a different scheme in England, and they were very interested in our Ffermio Bro project. So good conversations about that. You mentioned Chatsworth, and that was a very impressive operation. We had a speaker, it's a new Duke who's taken over, the son has taken over there, on their strategy, which I was very interested in. It was, I say, a very slick operation. And they've aligned, as a huge private sector organisation, which is the Devonshire Group, they've aligned their whole strategy to the LDP of the national park. So when they're going for any planning, it's totally aligned with the policy. Very clever, very astute, what you call close partnership working of a different kind. Very, very interesting, that whole process, and how they're really working together, almost on a forward plan. So they know in advance what's coming up with that park, and what sort of planning applications they're going to make. They also challenged us in that talk cleverly about some of the variations or different rules in different parts of government. So they were talking about the listed buildings they have. I think there were 28 or something on the site for them, but that they also need to make these different farms more energy efficient to meet net zero requirements from a different department. But the planning side wouldn't allow them to do certain things with windows, etc., that effectively meant tenants didn't want these farmhouses. So very interesting how the different bits of government do or don't talk together. So really challenging, good stuff came up from that. They also talked about the new kit and sponsorship. So we're moving from Columbia to Helly Hansen's. That was all very exciting to see the jackets and voting on that. They also talked about other sponsorship. And I suppose the other significant one was branding. We found it difficult, again, to bring all the parks together under one brand. So there was a consultant there talking about that. So just to be very quick about it, it comes down to 3 words: inspire, connect, and act. So what we have in common is inspiring people. They come to the countryside, they love the beauty of it, they engage with it, it's inspiring, and we inspire people, etc. And that's about our conserve and enhance as well, maintaining that for ongoing, generations. So inspiring. The second one was connecting, collaborating. That's the partnership working with others at all levels, from government to communities to businesses, and working together as parks and in the community. So that was connect and collaborate. And the last one was act. So they really felt that they wanted to move the parks on and get into the call to action around climate change. And also want to say it's not just us acting, but the whole of society has to act. So being the leader of climate change and inspiring others through attending the park to act and look after it for future generations. So that's the new branding that they're taking forward along those 3 words. And there should be plenty of flexibility in that to make it work locally, because we did get into debate about how it worked bilingually, Tegrin and I, and some of the words, etc., and how it works locally. But I think it's broad enough to work that it pulls all the national parks together. So I think that's it. Thanks, Di. That's all right.
Thank you, Rachel. I was very envious actually when I read all the about it. I thought, well, I'd have loved to have gone, but unfortunately, other things got in the way. But no, grateful for that. Thank you. And it's always good to be represented at these events. Good, thank you. I also want to mention Sana Duthie, actually, in her bid to beat her own record in running the 186-mile coastal path, which she's now completed. Unfortunately, I don't think she quite made it, but thanks to her for giving back, actually. It was a very public way of giving back, and she's trying to raise, I think she's raised up to about £1,900, and her target is 2,000. So if there's anybody out there who hasn't yet given, it's in aid of the trust. So if you haven't given, if we all gave a little bit, or others out there did, she'd reach her target. But thank you to her for actually giving back to us. I'm very grateful. Also a pleasure for me, actually, personally, to host the recruitment at our farm for staff for the Farmio Bro project. It was a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to meet the officers and staff and welcome those that might potentially be working with us. Councillor Mike James, you've got your hand up.
Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd. Thank you. Oedd y pleser mawr 'da fi.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It was a great pleasure for me to join at the beginning of the race.
Yn y Llandudno ar dechrau'r
In Llandudno at the start of the path.
Wel,
And I was sorry to hear actually that she didn't finish the race.
She did finish it, Mike. She did finish it, Mike. She didn't quite beat her own record, that was all.
O'n i 'di clywed na wedi...
Oh, sorry. I heard that something had happened when she was in Solvos, I think, so she did finish it. Oh, okay, good, good. So I just wanted to say that I was there with her when she started, but thank you for that update.
Thank you. Who's that? Who else just put their hand up there? Can't quite see. Anybody else put their hand up?
Sorry, yeah.
Oh, sorry,
Just,
Michelle.
that's
Sorry,
okay.
Michelle.
Just to say as well, because I'm on the charitable trust, when Sana came through Pembroke Dock, which is in my ward, I did actually meet her and run, not very much with her, but just a tiny bit. And she had people with her as well, and she was in very good spirits. And
Good.
yeah, thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you. There we are. Good. And lastly, for my announcements, we'll be losing a few folk. This will be their last meeting, which is quite sad. It's very sad indeed, actually. So we'll be losing Michelle, but first of all, I must congratulate Michelle on becoming Mayor of Pembroke Dock, a great achievement. So very many congratulations. But I also know that there was an arrangement that you would stand down during this time and Steve Alderman would return. But I just do want to nod to your commitment and dedication to the education work Pembrokeshire Coast National Park does, and your help and assistance with this. It's certainly not gone unnoticed, and we're extremely grateful. And also the work in your community, spreading the word and the work of the authority has been impressive. So huge thank you to you. And I hope you will return soon. I have a feeling you might, but you never know with PCC, do you? So things change, and we have our AGM on Friday. So I hope this is just a brief goodbye or an au revoir, and you'll be back soon. But I hope you enjoy the next year as Mayor anyway. And lastly, we'll be losing Julie James and Rachel Heath-Davis, Welsh Government, both Welsh Government appointees, as their term as Welsh Government appointees on the authority comes to a close. It seems like only yesterday that we all joined the committee at the same time, but it was 8 years ago. I can't believe the time has gone by so quickly. And you brought with you, both of you brought with you huge expertise and experience. Julie in HR and Rachel in audit. And you've made your mark on this authority so much for the better. And I know you'll be greatly missed. You've worked tirelessly and given public service, in my view, in the truest form. So thank you. Thank you from the authority. But personally, I want to thank you, actually. I can't tell you how much I've learned from you both. And you gave me the confidence to go for the top job, and you've guided and advised me along the way, and I am so grateful. So sorry if I'm a bit emotional, but you've really helped me. I do hope now you'll have a bit more time to do the things you love. Julie in your garden, no doubt, and being in sunnier climes. And Rachel canoeing and cycling and all those other things that you do actively. And I hope you actually do take a bit of time out rather than just take on more stuff somewhere else. So you've certainly earned it. But from all of us, just thank you. Just huge thanks. They are. Thank you. So there ends my chair's announcements. Apologies for the length of those. We will now move on to item number 6, to receive the report of the meeting of the Development Management Committee held on the 5th of March. Well, that's dealt with, so we will leave that. So that's noted. On agenda item 7, to consider the report of the meeting of the Standards Committee held on the 12th of February, which is on page 17. Does anybody have any comments or want to make any? Dr. Plummer, please.
Just a very quick comment, Chair. Thank you very much. We recently recruited to the Standards Committee, and John Hogg joined us. He's a really good appointee. I think Mike Kent handled that incredibly well with colleagues. Thank you. And I believe we have one more forthcoming vacancy, which we'll be recruiting to in due course. But it's a good committee. It works well, and we've had some very good training. So thank you.
Thank you, Rosie. Caroline, our Democratic Services Manager, would like to
just to say, Chair, that vacancy, I believe, is advertised in the newspaper today, so that vacancy is live. So if anybody does know of somebody who they could highlight that opportunity to join our Standards Committee too, please direct them to our website. Thank you.
Could you send that link round, please, Caroline? Because I think that'd be helpful for some of us. Thank you.
Certainly, I will.
Thank you very much. Next item on page 21, to consider the report of the meeting of the Audit and Corporate Services Review Committee held on the 19th of February. Rachel's chair of that. Has anybody got any comments? Otherwise, we'll note that. Okay, thank you. And Mike.
Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Chair.
Just to gweud,
and I just wanted to say, I'd just like to pay my thanks to Rachel for being such an excellent chair and keeping the meetings going, because audit can sometimes be quite heavy, but certainly Rachel has helped to make those meetings run smoothly. So thank you, Rachel.
Thank you, Mike. I think we have one more audit meeting before Rachel departs, so I'm sure we'll be thanking her on that occasion as well. But thank you for your kind words to Rachel. Item 9, to consider a report of the meeting of the Operational Review Committee held on 12th of March. That's on page 29. Has anybody got any comments on that, please? Dr. Plummer, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, thank you, Chair. Just a couple of things as Chair of that committee. Firstly, can I again thank our Democratic Services in particular? They minute those meetings really effectively, and they're tricky meetings, as all of ours are. And secondly, as Chair, it is always tricky, we know, to balance a whole range of matters in meetings, and we have had a small number of members were copied into a response from one of the audience who joined us. It's good that members of the public do join us during the meeting, but I think if others have any concerns, it's worth perhaps viewing the meeting. Thank you very much indeed. We had some really good presentations.
Thank you, Rosie. Now we will move on to the agenda proper, the substantive items. We're going to go to report number 1725. This is the Article 4 Direction on Camping and Caravan. Sarah will be taking this, Sarah Morris, who is our Director of Place and Engagement. But just for the public's information, we've received a last-minute email about 8:30 or soon after this morning. I know myself and many others haven't had time to read that yet. We think it's important that we do. So we are just going to pause for 5 minutes. So apologies if you've just tuned in, but we feel it very necessary to read this first. So we're going to pause the meeting for 5 minutes. It's now, it's 10:26, I think. So if we could just reconvene soon after 10:30, please, and then we will carry on with the meeting. But I'd urge, please, everybody now to read that email that came in this morning from a member of the public. Thank you very much. So you just pause, please, Caroline, if you wouldn't mind. I think we probably just turn our cameras off, can't we, and go and read it rather than pause the meeting. Can we put a sign up or something?
Yeah, I would suggest that's a good idea, Chair. I'll just do that with a sign now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Apologies to anybody who may have tuned in. We just paused the meeting for a short time while we read the last minute correspondence from a member of the public regarding Article 4. It was actually quite a lengthy document, and it may be a little bit longer before the rest of the members return. Apologies for those who may be waiting for the meeting to continue. Thank you. Okay. Have we got everybody back? I think so. Yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you. Is Maureen and Nesta back? Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. We'll carry on then. So on page 33 is the Article 4 direction of camping and caravans. and this is to confirm the proposed Article 4 direction for 28-day use of land for camping, caravans and or mobile homes. We've discussed this over a number of meetings, workshops, seminars, and for a lengthy period of time. We recently had Chris Healy from the area team leader from Swansea Council, who gave us a very informative workshop on this very recently. But I'm going to pass over to the Director of Place and Engagement, Sarah Morris, and I also have on the call Charles Felgate, who is in attendance for any specific questions. Over to you, Sarah, please.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just check that you can see my screen? Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Great. The report before you requests that members confirm the proposed Article 4 direction for 28-day use of land for camping, caravans and all mobile homes, and also approve appendices A to G for publication. The authority has been monitoring the situation with camping in the National Park area for many years, but it began a process of discussing options to introduce additional controls in autumn 2023. Stakeholder workshops with officers, members and agents, as well as statutory undertakers and tourism stakeholders, took place in autumn 2023 and early 2024. This led to a non-statutory consultation on a range of options which took place between the 29th of May and 20th of September 2024. In December 2024, members approved the making and publicising of an Article 4 One Direction to remove permitted development rights for 28-day rural camping, caravans and all mobile homes across the whole of the National Park with non-immediate effect. In accordance with the requirements of the Town and Country Planning General Permitted Development Order 1995, as amended, the authority then publicised the opportunity for formal representations to be made. The opportunity to make formal representations closed on the 21st of February 2025. The legal context surrounding an Article 4 One Direction is set out in the papers, but in simple terms, it is used to remove permitted development rights. Critically, an Article 4 One Direction does not mean that something is not permitted, but it does mean that there is a requirement to apply for planning permission. Article 4 One Directions for camping already exist in some other parts of the UK, including in the Gower, where it was introduced in 1977, and in the New Forest National Park, where it was initially introduced in 2023. In making a recommendation around an Article 4 One Direction, National Park officers have considered the National Park purposes and duty. National parks enjoy the highest level of landscape protection possible under legislation. There are two National Park purposes which are set out in the 1995 Environment Act. These are to conserve and enhance the natural beauty, wildlife and cultural heritage of the National Park, and to promote opportunities for the public understanding and enjoyment of the special qualities of the National Park. These purposes are underpinned by the Santford Principle, which asserts the primacy of the first purpose over the second in cases of obvious conflict. In accordance with the Section 62(2) of the Environment Act 1995, any relevant authority shall have regard to the National Park purposes when performing any functions that would affect land within it. The authority has prepared a background paper setting out the reasons that it considers an Article 4 One Direction is required. This has been supplemented by additional appendices which share case studies illustrating the problems created by the current situation. The authority's background paper identifies a number of real and specific threats and problems being created by the current situation. These issues are those created by the existing operation of rights under the 28 days permitted development rights. In some cases, there are also breaches of the rights which create further challenges. A key issue created by the current situation is potential adverse effects of 28-day temporary camping or the placement of single caravans on the National Park's landscape. As set out in the background paper, the authority has prepared, as part of its evidence base for the adopted local development plan, an assessment of landscape capacity of the national park to accommodate additional caravan or camping provision. This identified that of 26 landscape character areas, 11 were at capacity, including one which is the Skoma and Stockholm Islands, where this is not considered appropriate, and a further 15 had limited capacity. The capacity study did not include temporary sites, only established camping and caravan sites, either with permission or those which are certificated sites. Altogether, Pembrokeshire Coast National Park has 7,500 authorised pitches. Therefore, in some areas, with temporary campsites being added, this would result in locations being beyond capacity. As set out within the background paper, there is no ability under the current legislation to direct campsites to less visually sensitive locations. This inability to suggest less sensitive locations also impacts on historic assets. As demonstrated by the case studies, sites may locate even close to scheduled ancient monuments under the current legislation without control. As the purpose of an Article 4.1 direction is to necessitate a planning application so that a proposal might be considered rather than to ban a use, the above information is considered to justify on landscape grounds the imposition of an Article 4.1 direction. This would allow the authority to take a proportional approach, considering issues such as individual and cumulative impacts within a particular landscape character area. It would also allow for the LPA to negotiate with individual landowners if necessary, for example, suggesting alternative fields with lower landscape impacts or improved locations for access to be used as alternatives if necessary. As identified within the background paper and appendices, the current situation of permitted development rights does not provide any ability for the authority to consider sensitive wildlife or environmental constraints. Despite the River Cleddau having riverine SAC status and the majority of the coast having marine SAC status, the authority currently has no ability to consider how foul water is disposed of. It can also not consider whether, for example, a site is within a SSI, or whether crossing a SSI, as shown on the site on the photos, is needed to achieve access, or operating very close to sensitive areas of bird nesting such as auks or seal pups. There is no ability under the current legislation for the authority to assess highway impacts, water supply or foul water disposal. There is no requirement for public consultation before 28-day permitted development rights can be implemented under the current system, and no ability to seek to negotiate alternative arrangements should the amenity of neighbouring residents be unacceptably impacted. All of the above are issues caused even where sites are operating within the development rights available to them, and therefore when no enforcement breach is created. And the authority is not in a position to take any enforcement action, therefore, as a result of the existence of the permitted development rights. As set out in the background paper and appendices, there are also breaches associated with such operations, including operational development which is not permitted being left on sites, for example, toilet blocks and tracks, with associated landscape impacts which result in challenges to enforcement. The authority has also had to grant certificates of lawful use in certain circumstances where sites have repeatedly operated beyond their permitted days because of the challenges of enforcing such sites. Whilst there are mechanisms around enforcement, there is a limit to the level of monitoring the authority can reasonably undertake with limited resources. There are also a volume of cases which are investigated, but where sites are operating within permitted development rights, and there is no ability, therefore, to enforce. The authority has undertaken a number of both statutorily required and non-statutory engagement sessions since 2023. Workshops with key stakeholders which assisted in developing the preferred options for control on options in relation to additional controls for campsites were undertaken in autumn 2023 and at the start of 2024. Feedback from statutory undertakers during these processes flagged that there was currently a lack of ability to check foul water discharge mechanisms. Between the 29th of May and the 20th of September 2024, The authority ran an informal consultation which demonstrated majority support for an Article 4 One Direction and led to this being progressed. A total of 120 responses were received via the online questionnaire. The majority of those who responded, 62%, considered that temporary camping and caravan sites can have a harmful visual impact on the national park landscape. The majority of those who responded to the survey considered that more controls are required for camping and caravan development. The most recent public consultation took place over a 6-week period from the 10th of January to the 21st of February 2025. The majority of those responding to this consultation objected to the proposed introduction of an Article 4 One Direction. 216 responses were received to the online questionnaire and 14 emails were received. Of the 216 respondents to the online questionnaire, 83% did not support the introduction of the Article 4 direction, 16% supported the introduction of the Article 4 direction, and 1% answered that they didn't know whether or not to support the introduction of the Article 4 direction. A significant proportion, just under 30% of those objecting, referenced festivals. When considering these responses, members should be aware that in some cases, multiple responses were received from the same business. There was a significant campaign against the Article 4, and there were some misleading press coverage as a result of that. And I've included, for example, a headline which implied that festivals would be forced to leave Wales, rather than highlighting that this was a proposal only for Pembrokeshire Coast National Park if the Article 4 direction was introduced. In relation to the most recent consultation, having considered the range of objections raising specific concerns in relation to the operation of festivals, the authority has sought to respond appropriately, recognising that festivals represent a different use to which camping is ancillary. The authority has carefully considered this point, and its clarification statement in March 2025 has made it clear that festivals where camping and caravanning is ancillary in use will not be captured by the current proposals. The clarification statement included further confirmation that uses which do not involve camping or caravanning would also not be affected by the proposals. The authority has prepared an integrated impact assessment which has been updated at various stages. The most recent Stage 3 version is attached as Appendix C within your papers. This assessment includes an assessment of potential impacts in relation to biodiversity, Welsh language, the authority's socio-economic duty, human rights and equality. Some of the objections around the proposals raised concerns around the potential economic impacts of an Article 4 One Direction. The summary of the socio-economic impact assessment recognises the potential impact is generally positive. However, 28-day sites provide an income for farmers, small landholders and rural businesses, and there has been concern expressed that an Article 4 One Direction could potentially result in a restriction in the form of income or business diversification. It is acknowledged that there would be a cost implication to landowners if they appointed a planning agent to prepare and submit an application on the applicant's behalf. The authority, however, does not charge a planning fee for these applications. And the measures on screen have been proposed to reduce and potentially mitigate against any economic disadvantage to landowners and site operators, including free pre-application process confirmed in the March National Park Authority meeting, clarification statement noting the minimal level of information required for applications. As no buildings are proposed, there's no requirement for elevational drawings, and an ecological report would only be required on sensitive sites. The authority has also proposed a fast-track working protocol to deal with 28-day site proposals and the potential for granting longer-term planning permission or even permanent planning permission in cases where this was appropriate. and seeking to negotiate as a first point of approach. The final slide sets out a range of next steps that the authority would follow if the proposals are confirmed today. Those include communication, focusing on contacting affected landowners and inviting them to engage in free pre-application discussions ahead of January 2026. The immediate plan would be to pull in additional resource for January to April 2026 to deal with any increased applications received. So we have a number of officers working across the team who are primarily now within the policy team or within enforcement, but who are experienced in dealing with planning applications, and we would pull those in as a first approach to ensure that we could deal with those applications within a timely manner. Longer term, we consider that the introduction of an Article 4.1 direction is likely to reduce the number of complaints that we get and the investigation time. And as set out in December 2024, we're also keen to work on the establishment of a Pembrokeshire Code for exempted organisations. So looking at something that people can sign up to and that helps them promote their sites as being, you know, exemplars who are meeting high environmental standards and design standards. And the final next step is a response to the Welsh Government consultation, which is highlighted in your papers, highlighting specific national park issues that we would ask them to consider when looking at that consultation. So happy to take any questions that members may have.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you and the team for the very comprehensive report and appendices in our pack. Charles Falgate, please.
Thanks very much, Chair. Just a couple of things to highlight from me. Number one, probably worth also remembering that if confirmed, the authority will be advertising that confirmation. They're required to do so by statute. I don't think that's dealt with on Sarah's last slide, but also to reinforce in relation to economic social well-being of local communities within the National Park. There is the duty in Section 5 of the National Parks and Access to Countryside Act to seek to foster that without carrying significant expenditure in doing so. So that's it from me.
Thank you, Charles. Got a couple of members. Excuse me, Julie James, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Sarah. Just like to record my thanks to you and your team of planners and other officers involved, because there's been a hell of a lot of work involved in this process. But also from a member perspective, it's clear that there's a lot of passion out there about this issue and indeed some resistance, which as part of the consultation responses, I know that you've tried to address. My question is, what are the implications or consequences if members don't confirm or approve this article direction today, Sarah? Thank you.
Sarah, thank you, Julie.
It would be business as normal, effectively. So you know, members can choose not to confirm, and then it would not come into effect. Did you want to add to that, Charles, at all?
Yeah, sure, I could add to that. I think there's perhaps a slight hint in the question that there might be an opportunity to defer. I'm not sure if that was intended or not, but the opportunity to defer is available. It is, however, time limited, because at some point, and Sarah will be better on the dates of this than I, but at some point the time within which the original decision must be confirmed will expire, and it will be no longer possible to proceed after that.
No hint from me at all to defer, Charles. I just wanted members and those of the public tuning in to be absolutely clear what the situation would be if we were not to approve or confirm this. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you for the confirmation there. Got Councillor Simon Hancock, please.
Thanks very much indeed, Chair. Thank you, Sarah, for the presentation. Very comprehensive as always. You indicated the steps that you're taking to increase the resources to deal with applications, with staff doing training and so forth, because you're probably going to have you anticipate a peak. But what about the enforcement? What about getting extra resources for enforcement? Because often there can be disputes about the interpretation of Article 4 directions. And I just wondered, we have a small enforcement team in the authority. How are you going to generate increased resources for that if there is a spike in demand?
Yeah, thank you. So we have added to our enforcement resource with an additional post in the last year, which has been really, really helpful. So we now have an enforcement and conservation assistant. We are eagerly awaiting the rise to planning fees that we're being told is going to take place in November of this year. And I know there is an expectation from Welsh Government that will allow LPAs to look at their resources and potentially fill in any gaps that they think are necessary at that point. We still don't have final confirmation about exactly what that fee increase is going to look like. There was a question asked of LPAs about perhaps increasing the fees for retrospective applications with a view to that supporting an enforcement service. So we will eagerly await the outcome of that, but it's certainly something that we would monitor going forwards and look at very closely. But our hope is very much that this would assist and reduce the enforcement burden in the longer term, certainly.
Thank you, Sarah. Dr. Plummer,
can I just come back?
Sorry, yes, of course you can, Simon.
Sorry, I just wanted to say, just express that I wouldn't want any of our normal enforcement activity to be sort of skewed in any way for this. You know,
I appreciate
when we've got the ordinary sort of bread and butter applications and so forth. I mean, we've had you think of the kind of applications we've had in the last 6 months where there's been retrospective with has arisen from enforcement visits and activity. Yeah. So I wouldn't want our normal enforcement routine to be skewed by any particular focus on this.
Sorry, I misunderstood the question slightly, but on that, I think it's more likely to be policy officers that we move to support with this in the first instance. I don't know. Kate's got her hand up if you'd like to come in.
Thanks,
Kate.
Sarah. I think I'm sort of conflating Julie's question and Simon's question. I think that the impact of not adopting it would have a significant impact on enforcement. In reality, it is very, very difficult to enforce Article 28-day sites. It is almost impossible to properly enforce against them at the moment. So this would have a positive impact on our ability to enforce, because it would be a very simple case of being able to check whether permission had been granted or not. So it would have a positive impact if it were adopted, but it would certainly have it would lead to more difficulty enforcing the cases as they currently are without having an Article 4 on. That's all. Thanks.
Thanks, Kate. Thanks, Sarah. Dr. Plummer, please.
Thank you. First of all, we haven't yet moved into the debate, as it were, have we? We're asking questions. Is that right? Yeah. I just wanted to come back briefly at Sarah, and I can understand that question. Perhaps it was a little bit on the hawk. The suggestion that business as usual, that implies there's no kind of consequence of if we fail to agree to the Article 4 direction, whereas it seems to me on an evidence basis there would then be an increasing trajectory of harms, the sort of harms that we've identified through our workshops and discussion. So not supporting it would not be a consequence-less step, which is the kind of implication of business as usual. In fact, it would be to allow an increasing trajectory of harm. Would that be a fair sort of question?
Yes. I think you've described it better than I did, Dr. Flemmer. So yes, thank you.
Well, you were caught on the hop a bit, but yes, sorry. But I just wanted to, and then Chair, at the point we move into debate, I'm very happy to come back, please.
Thank you, Rosie. Is there any other questions for Sarah? Dr. Harwood, please.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. It's joint question really to Sarah and Charles, I suppose. As you highlighted at the start of this item, we've had some very late information and comments sent in. How we have now all had the chance to see it, but probably not had the chance to really digest and even to go through in detail to come back. Sarah's I've picked up from reading it in that session and in obviously listening to Sarah's presentation. I think Sarah has responded to a number of the items that were raised already, but can we just have perhaps from her, but possibly more some the legal point, you know, what sort of weight, how should we be dealing with this? Because clearly you've highlighted the importance of taking the time to look at this input. We have, of course, had a large number of comments sent to us that I'm sure that we've all looked at previously anyway. But some feedback on that would be really helpful. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Madeline. Sarah?
I'll start off and then I might hand over to Charles. I think obviously we have legally a requirement to publish and note representations received, and actually the individual who sent a late comment this morning has made representations through the formal process, which are also included in the consultation feedback that's before you. I think that members are required to use their judgment. So the late representation, for example, questioned the degree of background information and evidence that we have to support the Article 4.1 direction. It's officers' view that we do have sufficient evidence and that has been published appropriately at various points. And I hopefully tried to cover some of that evidence in my presentation, but it's obviously in your papers as the background paper and appendices. And I think it's really for members to weigh up whether or not they consider that is appropriate in coming to a decision. Charles, I don't know if you want to add any further observations to that.
Not massively. I think that sort of sums up where I'm at in relation to this. I think it's probably helpful for members to know that having read the late objection, there's two parts to it really. One is the individual's take on it, and they attach a paper that was written by Richard Harwood KC, who is a planning barrister of sort of very good standing. Mr. Harwood has his paper concludes that the Article 4 direction can't be confirmed as a direction, and a direction should be made revoking it. He doesn't go so far as to say that making the Article 4 direction would be unlawful, but that might be a sort of natural consequence of reading this. In terms of the law, this is a public law decision. It would be capable of judicial review, and if any independent third party thought that there was some unlawfulness in relation to the authority's conduct, then it could take those proceedings. I wouldn't want to get into a discussion about the merits of that paper or not, because we'd have to go into a private session to be able to do that and take legal advice. But suffice to say that, you know, officers had this on the dated the 19th of February 2025. They did reflect on that in preparing the papers that are before you today, and have sought to sort of consider the points. And I think Sarah's quite correct that you know, most, if not all, of those points are matters that require an exercise of judgment on the decision maker's part. So you need to consider those points carefully and come to a conclusion on them.
Thank you, Charles. Are there
Thank you
any
both.
other? Yeah, thank you. Oh, Rachel Heath-Davis, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just a couple of questions from me. It's around the modelling, I think, of the demand for us, isn't it? I know it's difficult to do it because it's something in the future, it's unforeseen, but it would have been useful, I think, to have a feel of the figures. We know we've got less resource than ever before. We are, you know, at pinch point. So whilst I appreciate what you're saying, Sarah, about moving some planning policy officers, some figures of modelling of what we expect to see and how we ameliorate that would be useful. So to model the demand, if you like. The other thing that would be useful, I think, is something that is a bit of a cost-benefit analysis. So whilst there are costs attached to us and to businesses that would have to prepare applications, there are benefits we are foreseeing, aren't we? You know, reducing the damage, all the things we've talked about, and our ongoing enforcement costs. So I think showing that would have been useful to really argue the point. You know, whilst they're always guesstimates, the figures are quite powerful. So some sort of cost benefit analysis would have brought those benefits, monetizing the benefits. What are we trying to stop here? Would have been useful. And so whether you've tried that or a comment on that would be really useful. How difficult would that be to do? But I think it would help our evidence case. So we're investing in the future in a way, aren't we? By spending now. That's the sort of argument we want to get across. I was trying to think. The other question I had was, you know, the capacity table with the sort of traffic light system, red, amber, green. I was mulling that over and thinking, what does this mean? So you were saying that capacity is already pretty tight, isn't it? I think you said 7,500 or something. We've got a lot of campsites already, which are the approved, authorised ones, even before the 28-day ones that pop up. So I just wondered how that would be applied, or is it important? So when an application will come forward in this new world, would you be taking into account the capacity? So I'm just thinking, hang on a minute now, if you were coming forward in a new world, would we be saying to a lot of people, actually, this is already over capacity, so we don't need this temporary site? So I just wanted to get that out in the open, what that meant, or doesn't it apply? And then the other one, similar to some other people's points, it's the monitoring for me and the enforcement. So to reassure us that people don't stick to the 28-day now, do they? So how will we make sure that even if we have given permission for a 28-day campsite, say, how are we going to make sure we know when that started, when it finished? Are we going to be actively out there, literally on the 29th day or not? You know, so otherwise you don't solve that problem, the one we've had all along, of the sticking to 28 days and the cleanup from the 29th day onwards. So just checking, are we actually solving the problems we started out to solve, if you know what I mean? Because it comes back down to monitoring and enforcement. Thanks.
Thank you, Rachel. Sarah?
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. In terms of number of applications, it is difficult to tell. So when we've spoken to the New Forest National Park, what happened there was a lot of the 28-day sites decided actually we're going to join an exempted organisation and took that approach. So actually their experience was that they didn't have a significant volume of planning applications made. They had a significant move to exempted organisations, which is partly why we're also suggesting that we would like to develop this code of conduct or a sort of a best practice standard that then those exempted organisations can advertise and say, you know, we've committed to inspecting our sites, for example, twice a year. You know, all of them are meeting best practice standards in terms of disposal of foul water and so on. So it's difficult to quantify. I suspect that we may see the same thing happen in Pembrokeshire, that actually a lot will move to the exempted organisations, and that potentially the focus for us may be more on that code than on responding to a big hike in applications. But we will be ready to go in terms of planning officers and in terms of that resource. In terms of assessing the different impacts, the integrated impact assessment is in the papers, and that attempts to do that. We haven't been able to do it in terms of numbers because some of those benefits are qualitative. So when you're talking about reducing disturbance to a triple SI, reducing potential impacts on, seal populations or auks, having an improved landscape, because actually we've spoken to the farmer and they've used the less visible field rather than the really visible field. Those are very, very difficult to put a numeric value on. So we've tried to do a written description to bring out those benefits. It's very difficult to quantify, but hopefully, that written description is there in the integrated impact assessment. In terms of the 7,500 pitches in the LCA, we would look proportionally at capacity. So, if it is only 28 days and it's in a less visually intrusive part of the LCA, it already being at capacity wouldn't necessarily be a problem. And in terms of monitoring and enforcement, the big benefit for us would be that we would know where these sites are, either because they've registered with an exempted organisation or because they've been granted planning permission. And there are two types of conditions that we would apply to those 28-day sites that gain planning permission. One would be a specific period of operation. So if somebody came forward and said, I know that I'm always going to use my 28 days as a block in the summer holidays, they might have a condition that says you can operate between, the 20th of July and the middle or end of August. And if somebody said, actually, I think I want to use my 28 days in a period of weekends through the summer, then we would, in that case, apply a condition that said 28 days, you please keep a record of what those dates are and inform us of it each year so that we're able to monitor. So in both sets of circumstances, it just gives us a much, much better idea of what's going on and ability to monitor and enforce.
Thanks, Sarah. Rachel, did you want to come back?
Yeah, sorry, thank you, Sarah. Just one thing, I don't think I grasped it. On the capacity one, you mentioned there you could change the 28 days, it could go higher or lower, actually, you could permit more, but I wasn't sure whether if the area was already red, so you felt it was at capacity, deemed it was at capacity, would we therefore not grant additional sites at all, rather than the difference in days? That's a bit I wasn't sure of.
No, I think we would consider it as a material consideration, but we would look very carefully at the individual circumstances. So we may get several types of planning application coming through. So some of those 28-day sites may choose to apply for a little bit longer and think, well, if I'm applying for planning, actually I'll go for a longer period of time. And some may just say, actually, I'm just going like for like for the 28 days. Critically, if they apply for longer than 28 days, a planning fee does kick in at that point. But if they just apply for 28 days, no fee is required.
Thank you, Sarah. Members, do I have any other comments, any questions? Councillor Claire George, please.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I was just wondering if you can reflect on the implications of best and most versatile land versus an application.
Yeah, I don't think we would be too concerned for a 28-day site that was, being used just on that basis around best and most versatile agricultural land, because it would be available for the rest of the year. Obviously, when it comes to longer periods of time, it is something that we would need to give consideration to, or if there were particular operational development elements proposed as part of the 28-day site that they wanted to leave on site longer, or tracks and so on, then that would become more of a concern. But if it, in most cases, for a 28-day site, I don't think it's going to be a particular issue.
Thank you. Any other members? I've got a question, if I might, please, Sarah. When we had our workshops about this and the sort of detrimental visual impact, we had a few examples we were noted, or it was noted, I think, that some of those have been long-standing, and an awful lot of work has gone into them with officers. And it's a bit like Rachel's wondering whether you can sort of quantify how much officer time that's taken, because I mean, I think one or two have been going on for a couple of years. So, you know, there's potentially quite a lot of money that we could save there, or say, you know, pay for perhaps more enforcement or additional planning. So have you got any indication of, you know, what your average cost would be for a planning officer or an enforcement officer to deal with a case? I mean, I know some of the ones we looked at were pretty big, but obviously there's smaller ones as well. So could you give us a bit of a ballpark figure? I'd be really grateful. Thank you.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult because every case is different, but there's always at least one site visit with a complaint, and I think some of these cases, as you say, have been running for years. So one of the case studies is a 15-year site where we've most recently been in court with an injunction. So that sort of that's probably the highest end, and that would be, you know, gosh, probably weeks of officer time on that particular case. But that was a wider enforcement issue on which 28-day camping and then retained operational development on site was one aspect of a much more complex situation. A more typical sort of single caravan that's popping up, or a field operating where we're getting complaints, but actually it's within the 28-day site. Allowance would be, you know, potentially 2 or 3 officer visits, and then sort of maybe 2 hours of an enforcement officer writing it up, going back to the complainant, and having it signed off by a senior officer. So potentially sort of a week maybe in total.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. It was interesting when we spoke to Chris Healy from Swansea Council that they didn't. I think we asked the question about how many planning applications had come in, and it wasn't actually that many, was it? So because they'd gone on to the oh gosh, certificated sites. So we may be worrying unnecessarily about that side of things. It's a bit of unknown, but from listening to others and talking to others, members, I'm mindful that we've spent a lot of time over the last couple of years, actually, very mindful of the decisions that we're making today, and it's Councillor Vanessa Thomas, please.
Just a quick question then around, there was information there about Welsh Government are consulting on possibly allowing up to 60 days. I don't know if I've misunderstood, or maybe somebody can just, if the Welsh Government consultation did go through and the 60 days was allowed, how would that affect our decision here today? Would ours overrule that decision, or would something have to change with that consultation? If it went for 60 days, does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It's a good point, Vanessa.
Yes, so this happened with the New Forest National Park. Actually, they adopted an Article 4 when it was 28 days in England, and then England changed to 60 days. And what they did was they went for an immediate readoption with immediate effect of their Article 4, because they said, we've already, you know, taken this decision, we have the evidence base, but they had to reconfirm it in light of changes to the legislation. So that would be one option. Obviously there is uncertainty for us at the moment because it is a consultation, so they may not progress with it, or they may not progress for, you know, a period of time. We also consider as officers that it's worth us making a representation to Welsh Government seeking for national parks and potentially for AONBs not to be included in the allowance if they do increase to 60 days. And we are speaking to colleagues across Wales about a 3-park response and potentially a wider response as well.
Thank you. Is that all right, Vanessa? You happy with
Yeah,
that?
that's brilliant. Thank you for clarifying. Yes, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, so if are there any other comments or questions? Anybody want to just raise anything at all? Say we've spoken about this and dealt with this over a couple of years now. For me, I think it's certainly about the landscape and protecting the landscape, because some of these sites we know are in very prominent positions, and it's important that that's our our key principle. That's why we're here. So, Dr. Plummer, please.
Thank you, Chair. I sort of take from that we're kind of moving into the decision, and I'd like to thank Sarah again and the team for their summary today and for all the work that they've done. It seems to me that, as Charles Felgate, our legal advisor, has made clear, this decision calls on us as members to use our judgment, and we have very specifically all had the opportunity to read and consider the points in the paper, some very thorough papers we've had, and the workshops we've all participated in, the correspondence that we received, unfortunately, at the 11th hour this morning, which again we've had the opportunity to read, along with the Casey's opinion that came with it. We also, all as members, sit on the Development Management Committee, and we know the park well, its form, its shape, its kind of narrow coastal shape, and we've seen the substantially increased pressures that are harming its special qualities, and we're about we've identified our special qualities as we go into the development of the next LDP. We've very much specifically discussed the sort of sewage effluent challenges, the water use, the challenges to the SACs, and the types of harm, both environmental biodiversity and amenity, that have happened because of our difficulty in managing the resources and taking any enforcement action against infringements, and the way that the 28-day campaign has worked. So I believe we've taken all appropriate steps that we can do to inform ourselves, to mitigate harms to potential business that we've been challenged on. And in the light of that, I'm very content, in my opinion, to move the conclusions and the recommendations that we indeed confirm the proposed Article 4.1 direction for 28-day use of camping, and approve the attached background papers. So I'm very happy to move that, Chair.
Thank you very much, Rosie. Do I have a seconder, please? I'm happy to second that proposal. If there are no further questions, I'm going to go to the vote. I'm just trying to find the recommendation. Can you just tell me what page this is on, please?
It's on 33.
Thank you. I was too busy listening to everyone. Yes, so it's recommended to confirm the proposed Article 4 direction for 28-day use of land for camping, caravans and/or mobile homes. Approve the attached documents for publication, Appendix A, consultation report at Appendix B, background paper with updated appendices and Appendix C, the integrated impact assessment, and note for publication, Appendix D, the clarification statement, Appendix E, direction with map, Appendix F, working protocol, and Appendix G, the advice note. So sorry, that's a bit lengthy, but I think it's important that we say all that. So I'm going to go to the vote in a minute, but I'm just going to ask Rachel to come in.
Yeah, thank you. Not to change that at all, just wanted to add the point around resourcing, which I think is right for us to do. Monitoring is one of our problems, always has been, our challenges. It'll continue to be. So whilst we've been reassured to a point, or I have, there is work to do there, I think. So also looking to Tegrin a bit, if there's something, somebody mentioned the word peak, for example, we might have to look at something in the next year or two to really make this work. resourcing on the communication side and the monitoring and enforcement side to really ensure it hits the ground as we intend. We've also talked about unintended consequences and people behaving in different ways and whatever. It's quite complex, isn't it? Because people are not going to come in for 28 days. There could be all sorts of days, all sorts of combinations. And I think to monitoring that is potentially really challenging with the resource we've currently got. So I would just like to say not to ignore that point. If we're doing this, we've got to make sure we resource it appropriately. So with that understanding, I think I just wanted to put that in as part of the mix, the proposal for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to put that in as a separate sort of amendment or an addition?
Yeah, I don't think it's part, to change the amendments and the wording. No. It just complicates it for the vote, but it's that understanding. We've had some assurances, but I think it's something more, as all of us have said, about monitoring and enforcement of people breaching these, and it's potentially more complex. We're bringing something that's it's not the flip, is it? The negative, the positive of what's intended with permitted 28 days. It's really complex. I think having that to work as we want, we're going to have to resource it. Yeah, thank you. So I think just making that point as an action almost to take away.
Yes, I was just going to say we make sure that comes back to MPA or somewhere at some time in the future so that we can keep an eye on it. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Rachel. I think that's very valid. Mike, before we go to the vote, please.
Yeah, diolch yn fawr iawn yn gyflym iawn.
Yes, thank you. So very quickly. So we are talking here about having 28 days under this Article 4. I'm concerned about where these camping sites are, especially out in the country. It's very difficult to monitor those more rural ones. And I'm also concerned about those very narrow highways which will be accessing some of those rural campsites. So will highways be monitored? So will they be included in the consultation in terms of these camping sites? Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah, please.
Diolch, Mike. Yes, they will. So one of the benefits of the Article 4 is that there is a consultation, so it allows neighbours, the public to be consulted. The normal statutory consultees such as the Community Council, the Highways Authority, and as I said, an Article 4 does not ban something. It just means you need to apply for planning. And we would always seek to negotiate and look at what can we do. So if there was, for example, one field with a really problematic entrance, but actually there's a field next door without a problematic entrance, we'd seek to talk to the landowner about actually, swap from that field to that field as the first port of call. But yeah, very much aware of that constraint as well. Diolch.
All right. Okay, Mike. Good. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. There's no further questions, then I'm going to go to the vote. We've had a proposer from Rosie. I've seconded, so I'm going to go to the vote now. So all those in favour, please raise your virtual hand. I had 16, is that correct? I think. Was there any against? Down. You could just take your hands down, please. Is there anybody against, please? And was there any abstentions? That was unanimous. Okay. Thank you very much. That has passed. That's been approved. I'm mindful it's actually dead on 11:30. I suspect probably a drink and a comfort break are in order. So 5-10 minutes. Do you want 10 minutes?
I'll leave the meeting now and not come back, Chair.
Yes, thank you, Charles. Very grateful for your attendance.
My pleasure as always.
Thank you. So we will come back at 20 to 12, if that's all right with everybody. if you could pause, please, Georgia, or put up something, that would be grateful for those that might be watching. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
I don't know if anyone's there. I was trying to vote in favour, but I couldn't. My camera failed at the moment of the vote, so I couldn't vote.
Simon, oh, I'm on mute. Thanks for letting us know, Simon. We'll note that down. Now you're on mute as well.
Sorry. Yeah, I was in favour of the proposal. Thanks, Kate. Thank you.
Thanks, Simon.
I got everybody back now?
I think most of us, well, we're coming back anyway.
Good.
How's the grass growing, Di?
It needs a little bit of rain. Just a little bit.
Overnight preferably.
Yeah, not too much, but yeah, no, it's we made silage. That's why I couldn't get to a new Peak District would coincide with silage. So, and it did, and it was good. It's been a wonderful spring actually, but we just need a bit of warmth now, and a little bit of rain every now and again.
Thanks for your lovely heartfelt tribute, Di. Much appreciated.
Oh, thank you. No, well, there we are. It's a team effort, you know. It's always a team effort.
Yep, indeed.
Yeah.
Well done.
Thank you. I'm not sure whether we're live now, are we? There we are.
We are live,
Yes, Chair, we are.
Thank you. Shows that we're normal people, hopefully. Well, welcome back. Hopefully you're suitably refreshed. And I know it was quite a lengthy previous agenda item, but it was an important one to discuss fully and properly. So I think we've given it due justice. So we will move on to report number 1825, which is the Local Development Plan 3 delivery agreement. And this is to approve the draft delivery agreement for public consultation. And I'm going to hand over to Emma Gladstone, who is our strategic policy manager. So over to you, Emma, please. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. Borda. So NPA approved the LDP2 review report back in March, and that concluded then that we needed a full replacement local development plan to be prepared. So we are now seeking approval to undertake public consultation on the draft delivery agreement for the replacement local development plan, and that would be known then as LDP Local Development Plan 3. So the delivery agreement is the first statutory stage of preparing LDP3, and the delivery agreement sets out the timetable for preparing the plan and the key stages of the plan, preparation and dates of consultation. And it also sets out the community involvement scheme, so how and when stakeholders and the community can be involved and engaged in the plan making process. The delivery agreement is also a statement of commitment then by the authority to prepare that replacement local development plan 3. I'll just quickly run through in terms of the draft timetable. Welsh Government guidance does state that we should prepare a replacement development plan in less than 4 years. So the official start.
Oh,
pardon me. I must have pressed something as I was talking. Apologies. I'll just start that again. In terms of the draft timetable, Welsh Government draft guidance, guidance does state in the Development Plans Manual that we should prepare a replacement LDP in less than 4 years. So the official start date for preparation of LDP3 would be after agreement or approval of the delivery agreement. So that would be around October this year. We then timetable approximately 1 year then to undertake and gather evidence for the plan, so identify the key issues, undertake a call for candidate sites, consider options for a spatial strategy and the growth strategy. The results of this then are all fed into the preferred strategy, and the consultation on the preferred strategy is timetabled for February-March 2027, and that's a minimum 6-week public consultation period. Approximately 1 year after that, then we have the consultation on the deposit plan, which is a full draft of the plan, and that would be then in early 2028 for a minimum 6-week period. Following that deposit consultation, we consider representations and then submit the plan to Welsh ministers for examination by PEDU, and that would be in July 2028. The inspector then examines the plan, holds a series of hearing sessions and prepares their report, and that takes approximately 11 months for receipt of inspector's report, and then adoption is timetabled for July 2029. In terms of the community involvement scheme, this sets out how and when we will actively involve stakeholders and the community, and it is key that we involve the right people at the right time. The delivery agreement identifies a range of groups that we need to involve, so yourselves as members, and throughout the process we will hold key workshops on issues for members. Councillors and city, town and community councils are really important in disseminating information and raising awareness locally, and we will engage with them through workshops. Members of the public can register to be on a contact list, and they will receive updates then on plan preparation, and any involvement then they can get involved in too. We'll also involve statutory stakeholders, planning agents, developers, including RSLs, land agents, estate agents, and they're particularly important when gathering evidence on key issues and when undertaking a call for potential candidate sites. The LDP regulations also identify specific consultation bodies we need to involve and general consultation bodies. And general consultation bodies are defined as voluntary groups and bodies which represent the interests of different racial, ethnic or national groups, religious groups, disabled persons, businesses, Welsh culture. And so you really see in that delivery agreement, we have tried to identify and reach all groups in society, and a list of those is in one of the appendices. And we hope that the consultation will enable us to identify all the relevant groups we need to engage with throughout the plan preparation process. So there'll be a mix of engagement early on and then formal consultation at preferred strategy and deposit stages. And during those more formal consultation stages, we'll also hold drop-in engagement sessions in main centres to provide face-to-face engagement for local people. So proposing now consultation on the delivery agreement for 6 weeks. We'll then consider the responses over the summer and report back to NPA in September, and then submit the delivery agreement to Welsh Government for their approval. So thank you very much, and happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Emma. Comprehensive as always. Members, any queries, any questions for Emma, please? Rachel, please.
Thank you, Emma. 3 pages I've got comments on, nothing major though, but just 3 pages. So the first one is 215 of our pack. It's paragraph 8.3. That's the easiest thing I think in your paper. It's the Welsh language considerations piece. So, you know, agree that we need to do new LDP, we need a full review, and that's partly what I'm going to say here, I think, because so much has moved on the Welsh language policy side, and that perhaps doesn't come across in that piece. So I think it's worth mentioning a few of those things. Well, I think we should mention some of those things, otherwise people will feed back on it, I think. So there's a new, you know, strategies on education which are going to affect this. There's a new bill going through Parliament. There's been a change to TAM 20 in the time this has happened, and also some work on Welsh language sensitive areas, a commission on that. So we need to mention, well, all of those things I suggest. It's only lines, but I think all of those as bullets are really important developments to show that we do know that's going on, and therefore we probably will need to revise our Welsh language policy and our sensitive areas. Whether they eventually change, I don't know, but to review them for sure. So that didn't feel quite there for me. The other line I just wanted to pick up on, because I think people will pick up on this one, is the second line: voluntary bodies which represent the interests of Welsh culture. I think it's a bit broader. So you're trying to engage with Welsh speakers, Welsh learners, and anything about the Welsh language and culture and its use, because culture is a bit of a specific thing, really, nuance. So yeah, that really did bounce out to me, the interests of Welsh culture. But we're meeting next week on other things, so if you've got time, perhaps we could look at wording, or we can email back and forth. But I thought that one might get a bit of a response. We ought to change that one. And then in the last paragraph, it talks about a separate Welsh language impact assessment, which I agree we will need to. The guidance has changed on that. So you always integrate all your impact assessments overall, and you're on balance, what's it telling you? But yes, they'll be looking for an independent Welsh language impact assessment. But I couldn't see that in the templates in the back. We've still got our integrated template, the one we usually use in the annexes. So I wondered if people will pick that up, or whether we need to put something different in the annex or not, or just mention it here. But there was a bit of a contradiction there. So just want to check that. So that's that page. The other page I wanted to mention is 23. So the Welsh language comes up again there. So I just wanted to mention there that we need to add. So we've got things in here, 3.4.1, yeah. Things on, you know, things being in Welsh. So meetings are in Welsh, documents are in Welsh, all the kind of stuff that was there years ago from the Welsh Language Act. But that doesn't necessarily reflect the changes. The big change in the standards is when you're consulting, which is the bit you're saying earlier, when you're consulting on anything, you need to ask the questions. So it's not about the Welsh language, the language it's in, it's about the actual content, the substance. That was the big change. So you're asking people in the consultation about the significant matters here on the Welsh language. Do you think it'll have an impact, a negative or a detrimental, or the crucial bit like equalities, is this an opportunity to promote the Welsh language and facilitate its use? So it's the substance of the words, not necessarily the translation, if you know what I mean, which is the key missing bit in that section. So those are the two big Welsh language pages for me. You might come up with more. I think you probably will in the annex. Hopefully more people will come in or let us know, but you've got the language commissioner in the annex and you've got Mentor Iaith. So that's great. There might be others though worth mentioning. I'm sure Mike will come in with some others local to the area, Welsh language groups. But I just wanted to pull your attention to page 64 for your numbering on the central government departments. So two changes worth mentioning. You've got Department of Trade and Industry, but then now the Department for Business and Trade. So to get that right before we upset them. And the other one I thought we ought to have in, which has changed, is it's DESNZ. So it's the Department for Security of Energy and Net Zero, which we really ought to consult with, which is a totally new department. And that's it for me.
Thank
That's
you. Yeah, thank you. Hopefully you've jotted those down, Emma.
Yes, yeah, thanks for that. Just to come back on some of those. I think that bit where it says Welsh culture, where that's I think that's come from the LDP regulations. So I think that's copied from there on those specific consultation bodies. But obviously we need to broaden those out as much as so we can. That's the key opportunity really to make sure that we identify all those groups that represent Welsh language, culture, and you know, effectively identify those then in the appendix. So any comments on groups that we can contact and include would be great there. In terms of
just go back to help you there. If you look at the wording of the Welsh Language Commissioner's guidance on the policy making standards, it's got nice wording about how you consult with who, and it's more about Welsh speakers and facility. So you could pull some wording from that if you need it.
Brilliant. Yep, thank you. In terms of the Welsh Language Impact Assessment, that will be separate when we go through the LDP stages. So delivery agreement isn't one where we have to do, we don't have to do an essay or sustainability appraisal or any impact assessments. We've just used the integrated impact assessment there. But when we go through, like preferred strategy will be the first consultation stage, and at that point then we'll see that separate Welsh Language Impact assessment come through there. And then yes, completely when in terms of the consultation questions, when we undertake any consultation now, what is the impact on Welsh language? You know, are there opportunities to increase positive impacts or you know, mitigate any negative impacts? Those questions are coming through, and they will do consultations that we undertake. And thanks very much as well about the government departments.
Yeah, okay, diolch yn fawr.
All right, good. Gwyn Angle Jones, please. When are you there? You're on mute. Might be having trouble unmuting, possibly. I'm going to go to Simon first. Simon, oh no, okay. I think you're ready to go. Gwyn. Oh no, gone back again. I'll try once more. Yep, you're ready to go.
I'm ready to go. Rachel, indeed, and Emma's responses have covered a lot of ground that I'd, and much more than I'd taken out of the papers. The one thing that I did want to consider was this business of what organisations really are going to be invited to become consultees. And I was wondering if there's something like we should be looking at the very people who are representing or involved at a young age, because this policy is for their future. So something like Urdd Gobaith Cymru, where there are local branches, there are things like young farmers. So there are several sort of off-the-wall organisations for the youngsters, as I call them. And then at the opposite end of the scale, the more senior citizens are very likely to be members of chapels and very much using the Welsh language from day to day. And we shouldn't we should realise that the chapel population is divided into all kinds of sects or sectors, and indeed, you know, that we need to remember that it isn't just Welsh Presbyterians, full stop. There are other organisations who defend their own position very, very, vigorously. And so I think a mechanism to try and get these people involved, these various organisations involved, is needed, even if we're only asking them for I don't know or nothing to add. Just to, what we don't want is for those organisations to say, it's not, what they're doing is not relevant to me, because indeed, you know, I've not been asked. We need to be able to say, yes, you have been asked. I hope that point makes, and I'm sure that's along your lines of the thinking as well. Diolch.
Thank you. Yes, still going. So anyone can be involved in the consultation, and that will be, all the information will be made available on the website at the relevant stages. But it's key, isn't it, to involve as many groups as we can during sort of the engagement with them before we get to the formal consultation stages, and that's really key. So thanks for the suggestions there for young people, and I think we've also identified we've got next generation committee, and we've got our education officers in the authority we can use as well, but definitely we can widen that out as well and include contacts for the organisations you suggest. And also I think chapels are, I think we have got and a religious group then various dominations of different chapels and organisations identified, so we can make sure we communicate with them and update them on the work we're doing.
Thank you very much. Councillor Simon Hancock, please.
Yeah, thank you. I congratulate you on the comprehensive nature of the consultation groups on, I think it's page 277. But one omission there, I think, is the Central 50+ Forum, which is obviously a body that represents the interests of older people around Pembrokeshire. And indeed, the National Park is represented on that body. So just a hint that perhaps we could include that as one of the consultative groups. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm sure if members have got other suggestions, we can pass those on to Emma outside of the meeting as well. I'm sure you'll be accepting those as we go through, won't you, Emma?
Yes, that'd be gratefully received. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good. Do I have any other comments, questions?
Madeline? Madeline?
Thank you.
Was Madeline there? Oh,
Diolch.
okay. Sorry.
Yes, yeah.
See you.
Sorry.
Apologies.
Sorry, no problem at all. It's very difficult wrangling the screens, I know. Thank you very much indeed, officers and staff, for the incredible amount of work that's gone into this already, but is going to go into this over the next few years as well. And I think it's really brought home to me the timetabling here, where we're looking, to 2029. A number of us will no longer be directly involved in a formal way in the park at that stage, but how important it is that all of these early stages, as with our previous debate, are dealt with as has been laid out by the team here. Really helpful. I've said before as well, when looking through the information provided by officers and particularly the papers we've had today, how helpful the integrated impact assessments are and the amount of work that goes into them. I know they're a narrative, and we were asked, there was a question raised about making them perhaps, or the opportunity to get specific numbers and so on in them. They're in there anyway, but I feel that the work done here really focuses not only the officer mind, but our minds as well, as to what questions we should be asking and what also has been thought about. So it's a great pleasure to read these. It's a huge amount of work that's done and presented to us, but it really is important. So thank you, team, for this, the one relating to this item, and indeed the earlier one as well. It's a very, very useful way of presenting information. My point was really to make a general plea. We've already had the comments about engagement and suggestions. Clearly, I think the examples, some are a standard statutory list, but I think none of the lists that are given there are exclusive and will mean that nobody else is available. So to pick up on the chair's point, any suggestions for not only groups or individuals that should be consulted, but also suggestions as to how would be best to do that, I'm sure the team would welcome. And my plea is for anybody watching, as well as all members, is to get involved. This is such an important document for the park, for the future. We refer to it every single application that we receive at Development Management Committee is set within the context of the LDP. Every single piece of work that our officers do is set within this this document. So it's critical that we get involved. I get mildly frustrated when people say, oh, we never knew about that. And then you say, if you look at the LDP, then you'll see very clearly we asked you, we took your comments, we fed back, and so on. And so it's could be daunting to people, but I don't think it's an underestimate or an understatement to really say that this is one of our key documents, our key policy areas. So to encourage everybody to get engaged with the process. There is clearly in this delivery agreement the outline for lots of opportunity for engagement, and once again to encourage that, to encourage members to not only get engaged, be as engaged as possible and get others to be engaged, but also to feedback to Emma and the team any information about who else we can get engaged. Thank you very much. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Madeline. Mike James, please.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Cadeirydd. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I very much liked Tegrin's message in the chat about Menter Sir Benfro, the Welsh Language Initiative. They would be able to contact people in relation to the Welsh language. And I thought that was a very good message from Tegrin in the chat. And if I can just put the language of heaven to one side for a second.
When we spoke about the last LDP, I think we had a joint meeting with Never, Newport, and other town and community councils with Planning Aid Wales, I think it was, if I remember rightly, and that was very, very useful. They were very informative and good in answering questions. So I think I've got their name right, but if that is an opportunity again, I think it will be very useful again. So diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Madeline, I think you've still got your hand up. I'm not sure whether you want to come back again or whether that's the legacy one. No, your hand's gone back up again. Okay. I'm presuming that you probably don't want to come back, so we'll leave it there.
No, it's not showing up as lit up on my screen. Very many apologies if it is, but no, I think I held forth for long enough.
Thank you. Well, I was going to say actually to Emma that this is the start of a huge process, isn't it? And it's really important that everybody and basically anybody can get engaged and put their comments into you and to the authority. So extremely important. So do we have any further questions? Because otherwise I'm quite happy to propose the approval, the recommendation, which is to approve the draft delivery agreement for public consultation and note the integrated impact assessment. Happy to propose that. Do I have a seconder?
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you, Madeline. Councillor Hancock, did you want to come in with, or was that a no?
No, I was going to second, but Madeline beat me to it.
There we are. Thank you. Sam, did you want to say? There's. I'm going to go to the vote, but there's all of a sudden yellow hands going up, so I'm not quite sure whether you're eager to move forward or you have questions before we go to the vote. Right. I don't think so. Sam. No, okay, right, so we'll go to the vote. All those in favour of the recommendation, please raise your hand. Thank you. Got 14. I think that's all, isn't it, at the moment? Georgia, can you confirm that for me, please?
Hi there, Chair. Thank you. Yes, I believe we've got one apology. I believe Sarah Hoff may very well have abstained as she left the meeting just for a moment.
So that's unanimous then, isn't it?
I'm fine there. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Emma, and thank you, members. We will move on swiftly to report number 1925, the remit letter. To note the Welsh Government's remit letter, and Tegwyn, our Chief Executive, is going to take this item. Over to you, Tegwyn, please.
Yeah, diolch yn fawr, pnawn da.
Thank you and good afternoon. A few years ago, at the beginning of the Senedd term, we received a letter outlining the government's intentions for the coming period. And as a result of the fact that we've made an argument that there are funding challenges, that means that it's very difficult for us to meet the requirements, the government have sent a further letter, which is somewhat revised for the last term of the Senedd term. So here we have a copy of the letter. It's provided for information, it's there, it's about the funding, and also it talks about priorities. But happy to take any questions. But it's there for your information for members and anyone who's interested in our work.
Thank you, Tegwyn. Over to you, Rosie, please.
Thank you, Chair, very much. And thank you for including this, Tegwyn. I think it's really important that we as members see the Welsh Government remit letters and engage with them. You know, it's an important part of our relationship and the requirements upon us. I'd certainly think we all welcome the 5% uplift, of course, because times are challenging. I think we very much welcome the capital allocations, which are significantly enabling. I know I'd like to remark especially on what it positively allows us to do with our grant-supported work. You know, connecting the coast schemes, for example, are an exemplar of our work with agricultural communities, conservation improvement, at a time when they are feeling very beleaguered because of the uncertainties about the sustainable farming scheme. But the one thing that made me really hang my head with great sadness was to note specifically the emphasis on good governance, the principal considerations of the forthcoming, you know, council meeting for the national campaign, national parks, as you know, good governance is really all. We've heard today that two of our highly engaged and significantly contributing authority members, both Welsh Government appointees, will be coming to the end of their terms on the 31st of May. That's only a few weeks' time. And as yet, there has not been from the Public Bodies Unit an advertisement for their replacements, which means I think we are in a deeply unsatisfactory position as a public body, short on experienced members, short on potential on quoracy, and I'd like to log that as, I think, a real concern. It's certainly something that I, as a senior independent panel member, will be flagging myself, and I hope others will. But perhaps you have more intelligence on what timetable might be predicted, or whether anything is predicted. Sorry to sort of hijack that, Chair, but I think it's really important to us.
Thank you, Rosie. And as you know, I've been asking the question for a number of months now. So I'm glad others have raised it. But over to you, Tegrin. Perhaps you'd like to comment, please.
Yn llwyr gytuno
Yeah, I completely agree with you. We expect the advert to go out at any time soon. Caroline and Georgia have been organising promotion events, and they will be held during May. So the time frame means that new members will join the authority by the end of July, beginning of August, but of course we don't have meetings in August. So really to begin in September. It will give us a few challenges in the short term, especially in terms of the 4 members that have been appointed by government, as the majority of our committees need at least 1 councillor and 1 appointed government member to ensure a quorum, especially in the Audit Committee and the Operations Committee. So I do think that could be a challenge for us, but I very much hope by the time we get to September, we will have a couple of new members and we will be back up and running. But we have made it quite clear that we aren't happy. And as an organisation that has new members for the first time in 6 years, we would have preferred to have a better time frame being agreed to. And certainly in 2 years' time, when we will go through this again, we will be making that point and making that point clearly.
Thank you. Can I just come back briefly on that, Chair? Thank you. I'm glad that you are making clear our feelings, and certainly as for the short remaining time that I have, very happy to step forward further if that helps cover quoracy, Chair and officers. But it is a parlous situation to leave us in. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosie. Do I have any other questions or comments? Dr. Rachel Heath-Davis, please.
Yeah, diolch fawr Cadeirydd. Dim ond i...
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to extend on Tegrin's point in terms of specifically the Audit Committee, the committee, well, it will be the end of the academic year, as I call it. That committee is extremely important in terms of the annual report and the accounts. So that may be something for us to discuss now. Sorry, Mike, I'm looking at you here now. But how does that work in terms of that important meeting, which can be a problem? It's a problem every year because people tend to be on holiday because it's held late in July. So that's the one that concerns me in terms of the time frame that you've outlined, Tegrin.
Thanks, Rachel. I think it's exercising a number of us, actually. So over to you, Tegrin, please.
Yes,
we are aware, and the challenge in next AGM, of course, is that membership will be changing, and during that period, we will certainly be having a conversation with the new government members, especially, to ensure that that meeting does proceed, and ensuring that anything that needs determination and at that quite difficult time of year, and making sure that it takes place.
Thank you. Right, Rachel. Not ideal, absolutely not ideal, but I'm sure, say, team effort, we'll get through it, but disappointing. Okay, if we have no further comments, I'm just going to take you to the recommendations that we're asked to note.
Hancock has got his hand up.
Okay, Councillor Hancock, please. No, I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, sorry.
I've got 2 yellow boxes, and you're one of them, and Simon's one of them, but no hands. So I don't know quite what's going on. So, okay, no, good. So I'm going to take you to the recommendation, please, on page 341, which is we're asked to note the Welsh Government's remit letter. I think just a show of hands that we've noted that would be ideal, please. Yeah, it's a majority. Okay, thank you very much. Note down. Yes. Thank you. And we will move on. Thank you, Tegrin. We'll move on to agenda item or report number 2025, Designated Landscapes Fermio Bro programme, the local assessment panel, and that's on page 351. And I'm going to pass you over to our Farming Conservation Liaison Officer, who's Arwel Evans. Over to you, Arwel, please.
Diolch Madam Gadeirydd, a diolch am y croeso I ymuno chi yn
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for welcoming me to today's meeting. I am aware that you've had a lengthy meeting, so I'll try and keep this as short as possible. And I can see some people smiling on screen, so I think that's a good sign. So we've already heard a couple of people talk about Fermio Bro, and it's been highlighted in the remit letter. And as part of the governance processes that have been designed for the process of funding grants, then the authority needs to create a panel, they need to form a panel in order to take a look at applications and to check whether they should be funded or not.
I'll switch to English
because I've got the English translation in front of me.
I'm here today asking the authority members if they'd be willing, and I'm recommending hopefully that you will be willing to establish a Fermio Bro local assessment panel following the terms of reference that have been attached. The assessment panel, just to recap, will comprise of authority members and other members of NRW, the local farming unions, and also the local nature partnership as well, to try and get a holistic view of the county and ensure that all applications really tie in with work that's being carried out with NRW and the community, Pembroke Community Council, and all sorts really. So yes, if anybody has any questions regarding the practicalities or are intrigued by the process at all, I'm more than willing to field any questions, and I'll try my best to answer them.
Thank you, Arwel. Rachel's first off the blocks.
Yeah, diolch yn fawr. Dwi'n mynd i ateb yn Gymraeg.
Yes, thank you. I'll answer in Welsh, but not as well as Arwel, because your Welsh, Arwel, is so good. It's lovely to hear your Welsh in the committee. So firstly, the process, and then another more general question. So I'm in favour of this, and I think it's really exciting. This is an exceptional project, so more than happy to agree to the paper and the recommendation in the paper. But when we had a workshop or a pre-meeting or whatever it was, there was one question that Tegrin brought up about the process, and if the government wants to have an overview of our decision making. So for us as a panel, there was a question at the time then, and we didn't have an answer to that question in terms of when we call decisions in. Has that now been sorted? That's what I wanted to ask. So the decision of the panel is the final decision, or is there a risk that the government could actually call decisions in? I just wanted to check that in terms of processes and risk. And then the second question is a more general one. To be advisors when it comes to land management, I think we need to keep our expertise, the knowledge that we have, and for us to learn lessons over time in terms of what's working well, what hasn't worked as well, so that we become experts in the field, as it were, so that we can advise farmers. So I don't know whether you have an answer to that, Arwel, but just an idea around developing expertise and this continual learning, so that we as a team, the park and the staff, can actually update our knowledge and learn from experiences when moving forward. Thank you.
Rachel. Arwel, do you want to comment, please?
Yes, no problem. Ie, now diolch am y cwestiwn.
Well, yes, thank you for the question. So in terms of the process of managing the grants, we have been in discussions and we've been back and forth quite a lot actually, but we've now determined that the decision of the panel or the committee will be the final decision. Every grant will be put before RBW Rural Payments Wales to ensure that there's no element of double funding. But there will be an audit, as happens with every grant. But no, we are very glad to announce that the opinion of the panel or the decision of the panel will be the final one. So I think that's given us quite a lot of assurance. And then moving on to the second point or the second question, it is an interesting point. And I think that's where it will be important for us. The plan then in terms of collaboration with farmers, but there's wider collaboration, I think, here as well. Farming Connect is funded by government, of course, and they run a number of courses in terms of professional development. And the officers that I have who are about to be appointed are asking whether it is possible for them to attend the British Ecological Society Farm and Nature Convention. So I think that's what's good for us here in Pembrokeshire. We've been running projects such as this one, but this is a Pan-Wales project. So I think there are lessons that we can share. And the coordinators not only will work on a local level, but also on a national level in order to share messages and good practice. So hopefully that's answered your question in part. No, fantastic. Thank you, Arwel, and the best of luck.
Rosie, please.
Thanks. Firstly, I really like to warmly welcome the scheme, and I think that's useful reassurance from Arwel, and I'm sorry that did we ddim yn siarad dda yn Gymraeg. It's really useful reassurance that the panel's decisions will be the final ones in the area. That makes sense. I'm interested that the payments will go through RPW. I think that's useful, and of course the audit trail. A couple of questions. One, the local assessment panel notionally includes, I say notionally, it is the guidance, terms of reference set out to include NRW with all sorts of caveats about resources. And I think we all know, some of us having been board members and more generally, of the pressures there. I find it hard to think that we'll necessarily be able to get that sort of resource. So I think we have to think about how we can get that input in an effective way. Now, I'm sure you're thinking about that. I don't think that specifically needs an answer. Well, it's more that I wanted to flag it. But I think the question I would ask is, how is it intended that there will be an integration across the local assessment panels? Because there is the intention that Fermier Bro would there'd be some degree of understanding, some unity, some sharing good practice. And I think that'll be an interesting one. I don't know whether you have any insights on that. Otherwise, I want to very much welcome the scheme. Thank the team that we have in Pembrokeshire already. Arwel, Claire Flynn, Sarah Mellor, everybody who works across these areas. I think that's brilliant. And the way that we work already with, the Pembrokeshire Nature Partnership, with West Wales Naturalist Trust, with Plant Life, etc., is brilliant. Final punt. I would love to offer myself, if my limited term remaining of office is useful. But there you are. That's hat in the ring as well. Thanks, Jill, Chair.
Thanks, Rosie. Thanks, Rosie. Did you want to comment, Arwel, about NRW position?
Yeah, I'll comment briefly. It's a discussion that we had last week during the workshops we had as a part of the scheme launch. It is a developing process, and we are hoping that our representative from RPW from the People and Places team will act as a conduit. But also our advisors are having training from various team leads from within NRW at the end of this month as well. So hopefully that gives them an idea if there is an issue or if there is something that needs to be taken up. They have a point of contact, as well as our good relationships within the local team as well. Touching shortly on your on your second point, it is an interesting point. I think for the first year, it's just about getting our feet under us and getting everything set up. But there have been discussions with the national program lead around coordinating more integration within the assessment panels as well.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mike James, please.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Cadeirydd. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Diolch Arwel.
And thank you, Arwel.
Fel arfer.
Professional, as always. You've partly answered my question, but I was wondering whether this would be similar to sustainable development. You've mentioned this is Pan Wales, so similar to Rosie, I would also like to put my name forward for this. The North Pembrokeshire, it's very rural, and so I would be more than happy to share my knowledge and expertise, and also just to state that Councillor Steve Alderman, he may also be coming in after Friday, possibly, and he has a great deal of experience in terms of farming, etc. So just putting that name in the pot as well, if you understand what I mean, Arwel. But thank you so much for this morning's meeting and your contribution. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mike. I thought I'd just wait for Steve to come back in before I clubbed in with that one, but I was hoping to have a conversation with him Thursday, but you've done it publicly, so that's fine. I've also said that I would be very happy to be part of the panel as well if there wasn't anybody else that wanted to put their name forward. But I don't know. I mean, is there anybody else that would like to put their name forward? Okay, so at the moment I've got Rosie, Mike, and myself, and I'm going to have that conversation with Steve.
I think Madeline's just gesticulated.
Okay.
Which I took as affirmative.
Okay, I haven't seen
Rosie.
So
yes, I'd be happy to be involved, but clearly we need to make sure that we've got a good balance of members and matching the other representatives there. So I'm sure Ardwell and Tegrin will be looking into how other members are appointed, which was a question that I was interested to ask as well.
That's fine. And so I'm just wondering, is it necessary for us to have a sort of vote now on the membership of the panel, or do we just work that one out between us? I feel like we should probably just work that one out between us, because there's a bit of coming and going there, isn't there, with members? So if we leave that there, if everybody's happy to leave that there. Tegrin, did you want to come in?
No, just to ensure a thing, I suppose if you agree to delegate to use chair the appointment of panel members, there's a clear decision-making structure there, and then those discussions can happen.
Okay. Okay, Rosie?
Yeah, just one final question, because Madeline touches on it very rightly. I don't know, there is clearly a need to appoint external bods, and I'm certainly very happy for that to anyway go to a delegated responsibility of the team to come up with. But am I right in thinking that they are expected to do that on a voluntary basis? Because we increasingly call on, or government says we'll have these terms of reference and we'll require there to be these external members, without actually thinking about what's in it, how they cover their resource and what's in it for them in the nicest possible way. I'm sure they're desperately willing, but they're also desperately pressed. So if, and as I guess, there won't be any recompense that comes with this, we will need to make sure that our processes and our systems are as slick and effective as we can have them to be. And perhaps return some favours.
Thank you. Yeah, good point. Thank you. Claire, please. Claire George.
Yeah, I'm very happy to be part of a team to draw upon. So it might mean that we revolve the attendance to make sure that it's shared across all of us. So happy to put my name forward as well.
Great, thank you. If there's no further questions, then I will take you to the recommendation that it's the authority is recommended to establish a Fermi Bro local assessment panel and adopt the national terms of reference. Appoint 3 authority members to the panel and delegate authority to the Chief Executive to make necessary adjustments to panel membership in consultation with the panel chair. So I'm happy to move that recommendation. Do I have a seconder, please?
Happy to second.
Got Councillor Maureen Bowen. Actually, I think she's beat me to it. So thank you, Maureen. And if there's nothing further, we will go straight to the vote, please. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you very much, members. Good, we're on the homeward straight now, pretty much. So thank you. We will thank you, Arwell, as well, and look forward to this project progressing. Actually, I think, as Rosie said, it's very exciting. Yeah, really looking forward to it. Good. Report number 21/25, the variation to Standing Order 16. Michelle Webber was going to take this as the head of nature recovery, but unfortunately she's away, so I think Tegrin's going to take this instead. Thank you, Tegrin.
Yeah, diolch yn fawr. Mae rhaid i fi dweud, dwi byth yn lyco...
Yes, thank you. I must confess, I never like these papers because it reports on things that perhaps we shouldn't have done. But our policy, I think our procurement policy outlines the process, and the feeling is that we feel that it's essential to take a step against the policy. And so in that, as a result of Storm Dara, there are a couple of locations where the footpaths and those locations are unable, where people are unable to visit them. One of those is in Trewyddill, and so there's a need for a new footbridge. It's a very remote area and it's quite difficult to carry material there, etc. So we've been looking for different ways and means of doing this. We have found one, and unfortunately only one company does this, and it's very difficult to take that through the procurement process, because so in terms of health and safety, we then went ahead and did it. And as I mentioned, the footbridge has arrived, so hopefully it will be put in place in the next week or two. And otherwise, I think it was going to be 6 to 8 weeks of lead-in time. It is funded properly, it doesn't have an effect there, but I'm just reporting to you that we haven't followed the process, but it will be used over the summer, and it wouldn't have been able to be used without making this. So apologies, but that's why it's here.
Thank you, Tegrin. Rosie, please.
Personally, I don't think it needs an apology. I think it's a sensible step in relation to the health and safety, and that's it. That's what we pay our chief executive and our executive officers to do, to make judgment calls, as we've had to with the Article 4. I thought the supporting papers were great and clear. I really welcomed the fact they're given consideration to alternative materials, but given the accessibility of the site, etc., etc. So I'm very happy to move it and recommend the recommendation, Chair.
Thank you, Rosie. Thank you. Gwyn, please.
Yeah, and syml iawn.
Just quite simply, I've read the paper, and it talks about exactly why the process has to be followed. That's fine. The one question that came up for me, is there anything in the report that states that this new footbridge will be strong enough to withstand the strong winds or unusually strong winds as happened during Storm Dara? There wasn't anything that mentioned that factor when selecting the footbridge. Am I wrong? I wasn't directly linked to the decision when it came to making that decision, but we are dealing with challenges in terms of climate and weather. So I'm confident enough that this was the best choice, and I very much hope that it will be strong enough and robust enough, but perhaps it would be silly for me to say that definitively. Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel, please.
Thank you, Chair. Two things from me. As Chair of the Audit Committee, I do agree with Rosie, but I want to make the point that it is important that we always try and get the best competition every time if possible. So we have to try and do that, and we have to try and follow policy. The only thing I would state, and perhaps it would be worth looking at our policy, perhaps it would be useful if it isn't already there to note in special circumstances such as health and safety, etc., that and if we feel that it's right and proper to veer, then we can take one quote. So perhaps we could just put something in there and to have a reasonable reason for do that in special circumstances and when it's not possible to have a competition. And then secondly, and I hadn't mentioned this earlier, I'd been to the Peak District, and one of the walks was to see a new bridge, which they'd built in a very, very narrow place in a gorge, and the bridge was made out of plastic, which had been recycled. So perhaps something which is worth visiting and seeing in terms of the future, perhaps Tegrin. And yeah, I just thought I'd share that. We need not be using steel in the future, but we may be using plastic, and it was strong enough. But it was incredibly, you didn't even realize that it was made out of plastic, actually. So something to investigate, possibly.
Thank you, Rachel. I'm going to go to Mike next, please. Mike James.
Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Mae'r llwybr
the path from Trewyddeł, Moelgrove, is a path where a lot of work has been put into it. The officers have worked extremely hard there. And not having this bridge, well, the local people have been very sad about losing the footbridge. So the sooner that it's back in place, the better, I think, and more people will then be able to use that footpath, and people will be happy to go there. So I don't know whether anyone has put their hand up, but I'm willing to second this. I agree with what Rosie has said, and also Gwyn, about making sure that the bridge is strong enough and robust enough, but also we need to ensure that the work is done to a high standard and possibly to go out for more than one quote. That may be the best way, but thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Rosie, please.
Yeah, I just want to come back briefly because I think Rachel makes a very good point about, reviewing the procurement, and other organisations often do, of course, have a situation where there is judged to be urgent and appropriate need. Clearly given the opportunity for competitive tendering, if that's, or competitive pricing, or multiple quotes according to the threshold. But nonetheless, what they do is they don't require a meeting to make this decision each time, but they require an objective written short report to the audit committee on all single tender, single price bids. And that might be a way of considering whether that's an option for us, because it can then be dealt with by the appropriate committee, would be my suggestion. food for thought for future, perhaps.
Yeah, thanks, Rosie. Good idea. Tegwin, did you want to come back in?
Yeah, as we review the procurement process, we'll take that account. But sometimes I think actually, since we're dealing with public money, it's a good discipline to force me to do this if in the rare occasions it happens.
Okay, thank you. So I'm not sure if we had a proposer actually, but Mike has seconded. Did you want to propose, Mike?
Os byddech chi mor garedig, diolch yn fawr iawn.
If you'd be so kind, yes, thank you.
Thank you. And do I have a seconder? Quite happy to move this as a second. Oh, Rosie. Yep, Rosie. Great. Thank you. If I have no further comments, then we will go to a vote, please. So this is to actually it's to note, but we'll do it officially. Thank you. Unanimous. Thank you very much, members. We've got one more item to go. We were considering taking this into private session, but after discussion, I think we decided we would take this publicly. Is that correct, Tegwin?
Yeah, when we originally presented this was going to be the subject of discussion, but I think it's moved on now, and I think we're asking you to make a decision. In view of the fact that you took the original decision in a public forum, I think it's entirely appropriate for you to have the discussion and either hold that line or change that line in a public forum, actually. So I don't think I could argue there isn't a public interest in making the decision. So from my perspective, I don't think it needs to be in private unless somebody feels otherwise.
Thank you. I know Madeline's got her hand up. Or does Mike Kent want to come in first, our monitoring officer? Can I ask you to come in, Mike, please?
Yes, Chair. I did discuss this with Tegwin, and we concluded that in the circumstances it was appropriate to deal with in public.
Thank you. And this is obviously, I'm just finding it was on the supplemental agenda. That came separately. So hopefully you've managed to find it. It's not on in the agenda pack. So who do I? Oh, Gail Lister, please. I think is going to take this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. You'll recall on the 26th of March, you made a decision to object to the application made under the Electricity Act for a floating offshore wind farm 35 kilometres off the coast of Pembrokeshire in the Celtic Sea. That was as a result of the adverse landscape and seascape effects that couldn't be mitigated. We were advised on the 10th of April by PEDU that because the authority had made an objection to the application, this had triggered the need for a public inquiry under Regulation 9 of the Electricity Act. The timing of that inquiry has not been determined yet because the inspector had asked for extra information from the applicants. Since the authority received that information from PEDU, the applicants got in touch requesting a meeting, which we had with the applicants last week, and that was with me, Sarah Morris, and Rhiann Forrest, the planning ecologist. And as a result of that, they have provided some clarification, which is appended to this supplementary agenda item, to provide some clarification on the application. And they have asked, as a result of those clarifications, whether the authority would consider withdrawing the objection. So we're asking for a decision today about whether you will retain your objection to the proposed development or amend the position following the consideration of the additional information. In essence, the additional information relating to the proposed development is that all the information provided was based on the worst case scenario, and they have explained that the project design makes a number of assumptions, and it's based on a design envelope, which is the maximum likely spatial spread of the turbines, the maximum height, and the maximum number of turbines. And they've indicated that these maximum parameters will be reduced when it comes to the final development. And that's likely to be a reduction in the number of turbines, likely to be a further distance offshore, but they can't commit to that at this stage because that depends upon the financial considerations and also the further investigations that will need to take place, which can't happen until consent has been given. However, they have provided commitment that the turbine heights will be reduced to 300 metres. And they've also clarified that there'll be a detection system for the nighttime navigation or safety lighting to determine when the visibility is greater than 5 kilometres, and the aviation lights would then be dimmed to 10% of the 2000 candela maximum. So the information is appended to the agenda item, and also the inspector's letter, which details the further information that they have requested from the applicants. So the asking members to make a decision today on whether to retain the objection or whether it will amend to concerns following consideration of the additional information. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. Rosie, please.
Thanks. Just picking up on you, Gail, there, you said reduction in height of 300 metres, but it's actually reduction to 30 metres, isn't it?
No, reduction, no. The original application is turbines up to 325.5 metres in height, and the applicants have made a commitment to reduce these to 300 metres.
Yeah. Oh, right. So it's reduction by 30. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, sorry. Yes, the reduction is by, yes, not by 300 metres, but the maximum tip height of the turbine would be 300 metres. Yeah, apologies if that wasn't clear.
Yeah, that's okay. First of all, yeah, I think, you know, I was very involved in this and read the papers very carefully. I think, and we all appreciate it's worst case, as you've rightly pointed out, Gail. The reduction in the number of turbines from 7 to 10 doesn't tell us what the position of those will be, and they can't do. So that bit is a potential, might be, might not. The commitment to the reduction in height, I think, is very welcome. I think the commitment to the reduction in the navigation lights by 10%, though clearly that's, you know, has its issues with sensors and etc. And I can see it's only 10% allowed. You couldn't go to 20% or whatever. So having read the papers, it feels to me highly likely that despite our objections, PEDO or the public inquiry would determine in favour of the development just because of the net zero pressures and given its infrastructure. But I think, and we could argue too that we ought to be considering in our considerations the costs of, you know, the public inquiry in terms of rounded terms to the public purse. But I do think we have done well to press and therefore leverage for reductions. And I think thanks to Gail's, you know, tremendous work and the team's work in giving us the sort of backbone and the information on which to do that. I would like to press for, if it were that we accepted the or withdrew our objection, and my inclination personally is in that direction, I do think I would wish to see us press for further assurances and also press for an undertaking of a post-construction operational meaningful review consultation so that one could have at least a meaningful eyeball to eyeball with the company itself as to if there was continuing impact. We could look to them to support us in some way in further and other or different mitigations, as we spoke about previously. And so that would be the basis on which I would be comfortable with withdrawing the recommendation, the objection, sorry.
Okay, thank you, Rosie. Madeline, please.
Diolch, Cadela. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Gail, for bringing this back. I think the points that Rosie made are really important, and the pushing for further assurances is a difficult one. We have seen in other places, not the park, but we know that sometimes developers are not as clear in their initial work, and also not as committed in their final follow-up to even formal consent orders and so on. So I think it is always an issue. I remember clearly, though, Gail, you highlighted what an excellent environmental impact assessment and general report this was from the developers. And my feeling is that obviously we have changed our focus and work in the light of both the climate crisis and the biodiversity crisis. And this appears to be attempting to test whether we can address one of those, whilst taking on board a lot of the issues raised by the second as well. I'm pleased to notice in the letter to PEDU's letter to the applicant that they have highlighted the many issues raised by our partners that members were very keen that we should have raised. So RSPB, NRW, JNCC and so on have all raised issues that the inspector is seeking further information about. I like Rosie, I think I'm rather on the thoughts that it would be appropriate for us to withdraw our rejection. I'm still happy for us to state that we are concerned, but I appreciate particularly that the suggestions of reduced height and further out, which may or may not happen, would probably cover a lot of our seascape concerns particularly. I think therefore I'd like to just ask about how us withdrawing an objection would make a difference, in that it's clear that there's a very strong MOD objection that may or may not be able to be withdrawn. And my reading of both their areas of concern and the PEDU response is that that's going to be rather difficult, but you know, we will see. But if we will there be an inquiry anyway if the MOD objection cannot be withdrawn, but we withdraw ours? If so, would we still have to attend? Will it be a full inquiry that all consultees would respond to, or would we not be attending because we've withdrawn ours? So it's a very practical question about if we withdraw, does it make any difference to our involvement in going forward with this? Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah, do you want to come in on that point, please?
Yeah, when Gail and I met with the project developers, they indicated that they had been able to overcome the MOD issues and that they were providing additional information as requested. We haven't seen that, but they intimated that they felt it would address the MOD issues. If we withdraw our objection, it doesn't automatically trigger a public inquiry. It may be that PEDU decide that a hearing is necessary. That would be up to the inspector, or it may be that they decide they can do everything through written representations. I think if they went with a hearing, we would attend and clarify the points of concern. Yes, but it wouldn't automatically trigger a public inquiry. And I have to apologise because I don't think I was clear enough on that point in the last meeting. Gail had very correctly picked it up in her report, but I think when I was asked, I referred to us giving evidence in a hearing in both circumstances, so I must apologise to members for that. But yes, if we withdrew at this point, we would no longer trigger a public inquiry.
Thank you.
My
Madeline?
thought was that if the MOD doesn't withdraw their objection, then that presumably their objection would trigger an inquiry. We weren't the only ones to object, or is MOD a separate entity and therefore not?
It's only the LPA objecting that triggers a public inquiry. So
that's really helpful. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Gail, did you want to come back on that point?
Only just to say that there is an update on the PEDO casework page where you can see the applicant's information that's been supplied in respect to the MOD queries. So if anybody wants the reference number, I can supply that.
Thank you very much. That's helpful. Rachel, please.
Yeah, thank you. It's tricky, isn't it? I'm sort of along the lines of Madeline. It is a little bit of an interesting balance, which way to go tactically almost on it, isn't it? To enhance and conserve the park and wider sort of wildlife as well out at seas, I think. On reflection, though, I'm quite heartened in one way that when we do make rejections, I remember the last meeting and people were nervous. I'm actually a bit heartened that actually when we reject, something happens. So I just want to say we shouldn't be afraid of a public inquiry. I don't want to come across as gung-ho in any which shape or form here, but I'm heartened that there is a process and that we should take some confidence from that when we as a national park say, well, we do reject on balance, it's got some harmful potential impacts here, that it did trigger something. So I'm glad of that, because there's an element of even cynicism last time, wasn't there, that it wouldn't make a difference or whatever, it would cause a problem. So just to hold the line on that a little bit, members. I'm not here after this, so I'm a bit conscious of being too guided about the decision, really, because this is my last meeting. But I would say hold the line on what we are here to do, to conserve and enhance. The other thing I was going to say is I'm really heartened that they've therefore come back and conceded. They've improved their offer, haven't they? Which we must, take a bit of praise from or whatever, bit of heart from that. And I'm just wondering whether another one push is worth it. So is there more? Because what we're looking for here is innovation, isn't it? We know we want sustainable ways of generating energy and storing energy, in fact. So how much more innovation can we get? I was reading last week, for example, on York Minster, I don't know if you saw it, but how they've put the solar panels within the tiles in the renovations of York Minster. So that's what I'm thinking of. We know today we sort of getting used to windmills, etc. But actually, how far can this go? Where is our innovation on this? So I'm just wondering, is one more push worth it on that? Not about holding a line. But I am with Madeline. There's a bit of tactics in there about together. So how many partners are likely to stick to the line and therefore make sure we get the best design and the overall best compromise on balance, isn't it? So I'm undecided is the answer, Chair, at this point. Sorry about the waffle, but so I don't want to be too gung-ho. But on the other hand, if we do say, in optics, don't want to look as if the park has now agreed. Are we entirely happy? That's the only thing I don't have to say in a future public inquiry hearing. We were happy. They've moved on. It's better, but we still have concerns. So I don't want that to be lost if we do sort of back down today in a way and change our positions. So, yeah, I'll leave it there for now, if you don't mind, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think your point about holding a line on that occasion was a good one, and the concessions that we've got so far are really good. Madeline, do you want to come back in?
Yes, if I can, Chair. I mean, just to highlight that actually floating offshore wind is a huge innovation. This is going to be a challenge, and this is what is being looked at in this. It is a trial, and it is, sorry, birds singing in the background. This is a trial. This is innovating to see what we can do in renewable energy production in the country. So I do agree, obviously, Rachel, that this is a positive concession agreement. It's not a concession. They've looked at it, and presumably this will still meet their objectives, but it will also help meet ours as well. The additional point that I would be keen to press, and my feeling is that we might be pressing on an open door, but again, it's how members feel about this. Is about the mitigation was very difficult to establish when Gail explained, and we asked about would it be available for us to ask for different compensation, and it would be quite hard to relate to this particular development. I still think that there's opportunities there. I still think we should be looking for what we could do in the park to compensate for any impacts that this might have. And I think that that's the area that I was pushing in our last discussion and will continue to this. I think that we need to be looking at renewable energies of all sorts, but we also clearly have to be thinking about what our purposes are. I think we've done that today very clearly in a number of the debates that we've had, but in now enabling a trial to go ahead, and it would be a trial, it would have limited timescale and so on and so forth. I think we can also very rightly say we've got concerns. We've got concerns about the impact. There will be impact on our park, and go into discussions not only with the applicant but with our partners identified as also having concerns about what we could do in the park that might help to compensate for any impacts there. I don't think mitigation is possible. You can't mitigate for the loss of the seascape or the impact on the natural seascape that there might be, and we've got that feeling that there might be clearly from the work done. But how we could actually get some things of benefit as well to the park might be an important thing to pursue. I'm going to be told by officers that this is not feasible in law, but I think there might be ways that we can encourage working with the partnership we have and the developer. Diolch.
Thanks, Madeleine. Sarah.
I'm not going to say that, Madeleine. I think we had a really big discussion last time about mitigation of landscape and seascape impact, and I do think it's very, very challenging to mitigate, and we saw the inspector's comments on a rebus that sort of supported that, but we don't have expertise on impacts on birds, but obviously impacts on birds has been flagged by some of our partner organisations who've asked for additional ornithology surveys, and I do think there could be potentially explored with the inspector some sort of package around impacts on seabirds, perhaps, which might involve contributions to SCOMA or other affected sites. So I think we could perhaps add to our correspondence if members wish to something about exploring mitigation more widely, so not focused on landscape.
Yeah,
I think it would have to be described as compensation then, Sarah, rather than mitigation.
Yeah,
it wouldn't be mitigating.
Fine.
It would be compensating.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Maureen, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say how much I agree with Madeleine and Rachel. I'm so proud that we stood up to this, because there seems to be a knee-jerk reaction, or wind farm, renewable energy. Yes, that's got to be good, but we've really looked at this from our point of view, and I'm so pleased. And if we can push for further concessions, I think we should. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just mindful of how we progress this, I suppose. Do we say that we're happy to withdraw. We still have the objection. We still have major concerns. We want a bit of compensation, please. Thank you very much. And who do we delegate that to organise? Or do we want to withhold our objection, go back, have that discussion, and then come back again? I don't know on timelines, deadlines, how that affects. Does it matter? I don't know. So I'll take some advice from Sarah, perhaps.
I think that the inspector had asked them to come back by early May with additional information, and I think the inspector will expect us to have a determined position by that date so that they can either progress with arrangements for a public inquiry or not. So I would encourage members to make a clear decision today on whether or not they are maintaining an objection or whether they are happy to move to an expression of concern.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to take Tim first because he hasn't spoken yet, and then I'll come to you, Rosie. You're on mute, Tim.
Lovely, thank you, Chair. Can I just ask, saying about detrimental on the visual and wildlife and things like that, is there any feedback from other wind farms around the coast that is detrimental to wildlife, like up on the North Wales coast? You know, there's miles and miles of these wind farms. So has that been detrimental?
Thank you. Who can answer that? Sarah?
It's not my area of expertise, so we've focused more on the landscape and the seascape impacts, which Gail has been trained on and has assessed. We have noted others' comments around potential impacts on birds, but we would defer to the specialist organisations such as NRW and JNCC and RSPB on those assessments.
Okay, thank you. Rosie, please, and then Tegrin.
Sorry, I'm just going to come forward with that proposal then, Chair. I propose that subject to our potential to ask for a sort of post hoc post-construction operational review, and to retain the right to seek compensation, as it were, you know, in respect of damages that we feel still are relevant. I would still suggest that we withdraw our objection because it's a local authority objection that very specifically triggers a public inquiry. And I think on balance, that's certainly where I am now.
Okay, thank you. Tegrin, please.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not an area I've got a tremendous amount of expertise, and I'm wary of having a tactical decision in a public forum, which might show our hand. One sense, I'd suggest if we want to hold out for compensatory elements or whatever, I think we've got to hold the line on rejection, because I think once we change, we're going to do it. I suggest. This is a short-term issue with one scheme, but a much bigger issue over the longer term. So what I was going to suggest in one sense, that we accept the changes here, change our proposal, and then reserve the right to contribute to any further action on this case, but actually develop a much clearer policy position for future, which would include measures such as the very sensible ones that I have been suggested. I'm not sure we're in a position to deliver those in the short term with this particular one. There will be more. This is the future. We've got to respond to them. I think we mentioned in previous, but I was going to say, rather than, I think if we want to hold out now, we do have to hold the line and continue our line, because what incentive is there for anybody to change if we've already changed? That would only be my line, but I know we've not had that discussions.
Okay, members. We could probably talk about this, keep going round and round, couldn't we? So are you proposing does your proposal still stand, Rosie? Oh, okay, Madeline?
Yeah, yes, it does. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Just so we know where we are. Madeline, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm happy to second the proposal that we should withdraw our objection on this to enable us. We do need. It sounds mad in one way to say we should withdraw the objection on this, then develop a policy. I think we need to review our approach. There will be others, as Tegrin said. But I do feel it's important that in our response to the inspector, we highlight the concerns and indeed the two aspects that Rosie has made, follow up afterwards, which will happen. It's a trial, monitoring is going to happen, but we need to state that very clearly. But particularly, we would hope that and expect there should be compensation to the local area, and that this should be discussed and developed with the group of people who have expressed concerns. And I think that if that is written by us to the inspector, then that will have weight and should be followed up through by the applicant. And we can ask to meet the applicants with NRW, RSPB and so on. I think it's appropriate to do that. But I think that would be a positive way forward for the team to go, and will also be very helpful and instructive for us for that future when we're discussing this again. So I'm happy to second that we should withdraw as stated. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do all members understand what we are potentially going to vote on this, unless I've had a different proposal? And I don't see anybody's hands up. So everybody happy with? We're going to withdraw the objection, but we're going to caveat with, as you said. Okay. Okay. Have we got any more questions? Because I'm going to go to the vote. Right. So all those in favour to withdraw the objection, please raise your hand. I think I had 11 there. Is there anybody against? If you could all take your hands down, please. I'm going to ask, is there anybody against? 3, I think. Okay. And is there anybody abstaining, please? Julie, I think, is she? Yeah. Okay. So that that proposal was carried. So I think, thank you, members. It's a difficult one, but I think there's lots to come. So it's important that we do get our thoughts in order for anything that comes down the line. Well, I think that's the end of the meeting. Thank you. Thank you to the officers for their comprehensive reports. It's been perhaps a bit of a difficult decision day to day, but you know, we're here to make those difficult decisions. Thank you for members for the debate and discussion, for Caroline and for Georgia for keeping us on track, and thanks to Linwin, our interpreter. Getting my teeth stuck. We've got a workshop. I'm not sure what time the workshop is going to kick off. But what time is it now? It's like 1:15.
It will begin at quarter
to
2. We're scheduled for, if that's all right, Chair.
Oh, quarter to 2 then. So, okay, so we've got half an hour. Have a bit of lunch, and then we will see. But are we coming back on this?
On the same link, yeah.
Same link. So we'll just leave it and turn off cameras. Okay. But thank you very much. Thank you for anybody who's been watching. And if anybody's got any questions, please don't hesitate to get hold of us. We're